All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1 in this best of 3 in the second round of AoE4 Pro League. An absolutely amazing matchup to take a look at over here to start with the second round. To the north of the map, we will have StrikeR, Eerie, and ZertoN, all of them being very well renowned Age of Empires 4 players. We will have in the pocket, ZertoN playing as the Rus in blue. To the left of him, it is going to be StrikeR playing as the English in red. And on the right side, we will have Eerie playing as the yellow Mongols. Down south, it is going to be White Wolf Palace, a team that's known for a lot of Age of Empires 2 experience. They've been playing a lot of team games in Age of Empires 4, but not particularly a ton of 1v1s. So their 1v1 ratings are not spectacular, but they have been playing team games all day, all night. On the left is going to be Mr.Yo playing as the purple English. To the right side, this is going to be Intiel Bad Koala playing as the Mongols. And in the pocket, we will have the Fat Dragon himself, Vivi, playing in green. So looking at the civilizations, the first thing that you notice is that there is a slight deviation between the two teams. You do have a French pocket for ZertoN's team, and there is a Rus pocket or excuse me, I flipped the civilizations. There is going to be a Rus pocket for ZertoN's team and a French pocket for Vivi's team. French is probably the easier civilization to play when it comes to pocket, but in a team game setting, especially when you only have one Rus player, it's very, very easy to get a ton of bounty for yourself. So ZertoN could easily get to 500 bounty in Dark Age here with the Rus because there are so many huntables out there. It's still 2 patches of deer per player, but since you have 6 players, that is 12 patches of deer, plus of course the wolves, so ton of bounty together for the Rus player. It is even a lot of bounty when you have 2 Rus players, let alone having just 1 Rus player out there. So this is gonna be an absolutely amazing position to be in for ZertoN. Now, given the fact that he is playing as the pocket, I would be very surprised if he went for Fast Castle Horse Archers. It's possible he will try Fast Castle Knights play, but it's also possible that he will just play standard Feudal Age Knights and capitalize on the extra economy that he's getting from the bounty system out there. He managed to find quite a lot of sheep out there, and that's going to help with the bounty as well, of course. Each sheep being killed gives him 5 bounty to work with. To the north, he's going to aggro 2 wolves. That's going to be 50 gold following him. And down south, we already have Mr.Yo coming in with the Council Hall. Angadai coming in from Bad Koala. The previous set that White Wolf Palace has played, Bad Koala came forward and tried to tower rush the pocket player. In this scenario, I don't think it's legitimate because it's very possible that the Rus player won't be using a ton of gold at the beginning of the game. So you could only try to tower rush the Lumberjacks, but that's a little more difficult to pull off. I don't think that it is a legitimate strategy right now for Bad Koala, especially with the 2 forests belonging to ZertoN being split so well. So would be somewhat surprised to see a tower rush coming in, at least towards the pocket, but there are some spearmen on the way, and I do see 2 villagers. So it looks like Bad Koala is gonna make an attempt at a Mongol tower rush, and boy oh boy, this could be a perfect tower, because one thing that we haven't seen is ZertoN's base. Look at that. 2 gold mines out there, lying wide open, and right next to each other. A tower here would cut off ZertoN from gold for a long, long time. Now, if ZertoN goes for a fast castle, that shouldn't really concern him that much. And right now, it very much seems like he is going for that. Professional scouts on the way for him. Looks like he's just going to use the Golden Gate to buy himself up. He isn't making a stable, so there is going to be no knights coming in. It looks like Bad Koala is going to open with a tower right next to that wood line. He's going to follow this up with a second tower on the gold. For now, ZertoN is completely unaware of this one. Actually, he does see the tower. Obviously, can't really do much against it with no army. For now, he's gonna have to relocate his lumberjacks. That's the best thing that he can do. Meanwhile, though, Eerie is moving in with a couple of scouts. He's Mongols, so he can go double production on the scouts, and he is going to scare away the Fat Dragon from his gold mine. Vivi is going for his own scouts, and since there is not a single knight on the battlefield, the best thing that Vivi can do is trade evenly with the knights. One scout gets intercepted by the town center fire out here. Still, Vivi has access to gold, which is going to allow him to get professional scouts. It's already on the way for him. And once he has 1 or 2 more scouts, or potentially 1 knight, he should be able to scare away Eerie. Looking at the archers of Striker, those will be dispatched to clean up the spearman aggression from Bat Koala. Bat Koala still has both of his 4 villagers alive though, and the spearmen also are able to garrison the tower. Looks like one villager went down though. I wonder if this tower is within the range of the town center, because that seems to be the case here. This town center taking some shots over here, managed to kill one villager. On the right side, we have a minimal fighting going on, so most of the action is happening close to the base of Zerton and some close to the base of the Fat Dragon. Yo is just now moving out, working his way through the map towards Striker's base. Here come the professional scouts from WWP. He's playing Mongols, but he has just reached Feudal Age, so he doesn't have professional scouts just yet. I wonder if he's even going to grab it. He's got some scouts out there, so professional scouts could make some sense for him, but obviously it's something that takes quite a lot of time, so you're gonna have to wait a tiny bit for it. Worthwhile to note is the fact that we have 530 bounty for Zerton. That's a ton of gold to work with if you think about it, and it also unlocks tier 3 of the bounty. So if you look at the resources of Zerton, he is getting close to clicking up to Castle Age, and I would expect him to go for Knights from the pocket. Once again, Striker's longbows will be dispatched to help clean up this aggression here, maybe even intercept the Khan, and it looks like Bat Koala will lose his Khan, which means that he's not gonna have the buff arrows available. On the other side, though, longbows are moving in from Mr.Yo, will intercept one villager, town center fire will respond, and with the longbows coming out for Striker, he should be able to hold off Mr.Yo's forces. Nice and convenient. He was forced off from his gold mine, which is far from ideal, but not the end of the world either. We have Castle Age already on the way for Zerton. That's going to be a nice 7.5 minutes Castle Age time with the Abbey of the Trinity. He can start picking up relics, and this is where we have to highlight that you do have more relics in team games than you have in 1v1s. So that fast Abbey of the Trinity can help even more compared to other game modes. 2 pastures already up here for Eerie. He's a little low on sheep, so he kind of needs that. On the other side, looking at the Bat Koala, he still has a barracks going, as his Ovu is right now under attack by Eerie's scouts. Nice find over there by our yellow player, trying to burn down that Ovu and prevent the double training from happening. A response from Bat Koala will be 2 Spearmen. That should be able to scare away those scouts for the time being. Castle Age in first for Zerton. He's already popping out the Warrior Monks, and it looks like he's going for Horse Archers. Interesting. That is not something that you see very often from pocket players. It is fairly obvious for Rus to go for Horse Archers, but usually when that's done, the Rus player takes the flank position, and then you just have something like the French playing Knights from the pocket. So it's a little unconventional, but obviously being the pocket gives you a lot of safety, so your fast castle can be nice and clean, and now you have Horse Archers working for you. Yo still planning to push Striker's base, but Striker does have longbows protecting that gold mine, so this aggression should not yield any result here for Mr. Yo. The archers will exchange shots, and at the end of the day, Yo's forces will be cleaned up, although Vivi is coming in with a couple of knights from behind, and that can be a perfect way to soak up arrow fire. Network of castles now working for Striker, but the combined forces of Vivi and Mr. Yo could easily do a lot of damage here to the economy of Striker. Striker losing a couple of lumberjacks, also has to abandon his wood line. So as things stand, if you look at Striker's POV, he doesn't have a ton of wood in the bank, which means that replenishing those longbowmen will be a little more difficult. That was a very nice raid from Mr. Yo's team. Meanwhile, on the right side though, Eerie wasn't idle either. He is coming in with horsemen, so since his pocket isn't going for melee cavalry, it is going to be Eerie playing with the melee cav. For now, it's horsemen, will probably be lancers in Castle Age. Not necessarily the best fight ever for Eerie, fighting against hardened spearmen with his horsemen. But at the end of the day, the Ovu survives, and that's the most important thing for Bat Koala right now. Being able to keep that Ovu alive is quite important. Get that gold or stone trickle going. On the northern part of the map, we do have Horse Archers being massed already by Zerton, grabbing the relics as well. He currently has no relics in that abbey, but those are slowly coming in. There is a couple of relics that are easily accessible. Still some scouts roaming the map for Zerton, so he can still pick up some relics should he decide to do so. The tower is still alive, and this tower is being annoying for ZertoN. ZertoN should probably pull those lumberjacks and move to the wood line on the north, because this tower has been denying these lumberjacks for a long, long time. Down south, you will have battering rams coming in for Mr.Yo. This is something that he loves to do with the English, go for that early siege push. They love to spend a lot of time in Feudal Age, and then just go for the longbow plus knight push. Using VV's forces, StrikeR is coming up with some walls on the left side of his base, but his gold mine is still quite exposed, and they don't have a power unit when it comes to melee cavalry. They only have horsemen. So longbows and horse archers, they will have a difficult time cleaning up those knights and longbows combined. Yo is crawling up with a forward tower to try and expand his own network of castles bonus, as the ram now starts pushing up. VV's forces are not moving in just yet. Where are the horse archers for ZertoN? Looks like they are still inside his base, so it takes a couple of moments for them to come across the battlefield. Bad Koala doesn't have any forces on the battlefield right now, though, so that's something to keep monitoring. Here comes the push from Mr.Yo's base. As I said, the knights were a little behind, but now they are thinking about charging in. Still, Yo's team seems to be quite cautious and careful about this approach. They burned down the mining camp, now they're going through the houses. Those proxy buildings being taken down help a lot for Mr.Yo's team as well. Knocking down those houses will make it more difficult for StrikeR to get longbows out on the field. A couple of palings were deployed by StrikeR, so it's a little more difficult for VV to charge in with the cavalry. Nice defense so far by StrikeR. And here come the forces of ZertoN. Horse archers, also a couple of scouts being mixed in. That should be enough to clean up this army over here. A lot of longbows out there for StrikeR, firing with a network of castles bonus as well. And with the help of those Castle Age horse archers, they can clean up those knights nice and easy. Most of the forces from White Wolf Palace are getting cleaned up. On this side, there's still a never-ending trickle of longbows coming in here for Mr.Yo, so they're not giving up on this yet. And mass longbows will still be able to perform quite nicely against mass horse archers, but that was a big win here for ZertoN's team in the end. ZertoN still the only player in Castle Age. Looking at VV, he's coming in with some walls at the back of his base. He's going to try and protect that gold mine from future raids coming from Eerie. Speaking of who, there is Castle Age coming in for him, as on the other side of the map we have the scouts of ZertoN torching down the forward tower from Bad Koala. So finally this forward does get cleaned up, including the villager that was garrisoned inside. Currently we have 2 relics working only for ZertoN, but he's got multiple warrior monks on the battlefield, so he should have no trouble collecting a couple more for himself. 3 Castle Age players right now. Bad Koala also reached Castle, as he's probably going to play with Lancers. Indeed, here come the first couple of Lancers from him. How close are VV and Mr.Yo to Feudal Age, or Castle Age, excuse me? Mr.Yo very far away, looking at VV, he's also kind of far. StrikeR, not close either. So at this point, it's going to remain 2 versus 3 when it comes to Castle Age player numbers. Once again, Yo is preparing another ram push for the time being. Looking at the gold mines of StrikeR, this gold mine is quite exposed, and it does not seem to have a close backup. This might be his best backup at this point, so not an ideal gold mine, and obviously lack of access to gold could slow down his Castle Age. Meanwhile, down south we are going to have the outpost up for Mr.Yo, another archer range coming in, so he's going to have forward longbow production as well. Siege coming in for StrikeR to try and clean that tower up. On the right side, everything seems to be quite peaceful and nice. We had some Lancers coming in for Eerie, but it seems like they're not doing that much up until now. VV coming in with some more Vols. Look at those Vols coming in for the Fat Dragon. He wants to fully Vol himself. These guys have been playing a ton of Age of Empires 2, and in AoE2, Voling is quite popular quite early on. So these Vols remind me quite a bit to how you would Vol an Age of Empires 2 map. Big fight coming in on this side, as Eerie's forces do get intercepted here. That was kind of a disaster of a fight for Eerie. He's going to have to retreat though. They're trying to isolate VV's knights from those longbowmen. Massive numbers advantage here for StrikeR's team though. Quite a lot of horse archers, some scouts to soak up the arrow fire, and some longbows. Still, you have a ton of knights out here, and if the longbows from our purple player Mr.Yo focus down the horse archers, the knights will be able to perform at a quite decent level. Still, you cannot help but wonder if Vivi's team will be able to hold off this force, because that's a lot of horse archers, a lot of longbowmen, and the horse archers and these lancers are castle age units, whereas Vivi's cavalry is still a feudal age force. Looks like White Wolf Palace is getting pushed back. Yo's forces getting picked off as they retreat. They will do their best to finish off some more horse archers, but in the end, Yo is getting cleaned up quite rapidly. Looking tough for Mr.Yo's team right now, because their aggression has just been cleaned up. Those Rus horse archers do a lot, but also the lancers from Eery helped quite a bit. These are castle age lancers compared to the feudal age knights of the Fat Dragon. Bad Koala's forces were just missing from the battlefield. It was a 3 versus 2 fight that obviously contributed very heavily to the defeat of White Wolf Palace in there. Where is Bad Koala at? He's got quite a lot of lancers moving in, but you have Eery with some of his own defending. He can afford to trade evenly. He's got 3 defensive towers as well on his gold mine, so it is very difficult for Bad Koala to push Eery. And now you have StrikeR's team setting up siege right next to Mr.Yo's base. Army numbers are just looking way better right now for StrikeR's team. Looking at the KDs as well, 61 to 22 for StrikeR. Quite spectacular. Horse archers now moving in from Zerton inside Mr.Yo's base. Yo is going to react to a couple of defensive towers. There are still a fairly sizable force of knights here for the Fat Dragon, and Yo's got some longbows going as well. But they need to find a way to get to Castle Age. Otherwise, there is just no way for them to come back into this game. They are fighting from a massively disadvantageous position when it comes to technology. Vivi reaching Castle Age, and that could be a saving grace right now for White Wolf Palace, because as things stand, once those Castle Age knights come in, those will be better than the lancers of the Mongols, so that can help quite a bit. You already have sacred sites being captured by Zerton though, so they're really leveraging that map control, as the lumberjacks will get raided by those knights. Quite a lot of villagers will go down here from Mr.Yo, putting him into a very, very difficult position economy-wise. He's already on the back foot. I feel like at this point, White Wolf Pass is probably considering letting Mr.Yo die for the sake of Vivi being able to take a good fight over here with all the upgrades in. But at this point, Yo's economy isn't looking spectacular. He's down to 28 villagers only. Villagers on the farms were killed, lumberjacks were killed, and the lumberjacks keep getting slaughtered now that the Castle Age Knights are in for Vivi. And you see, Eery knows exactly how minimal the forces of Vivi are over here, as I would expect some reinforcements to come in soon for Zerton's team. Mr.Yo lost his landmark, so he won't even be able to produce any more longbowmen. One thing that he could still try to do is send resources to his teammates, so Vivi can go for a couple more knights here, try and force one decisive engagement. But Bad Koala's forces have been missing really badly from these fights. It always seems to be a 3 versus 2 as the knights from the Fat Dragon do charge in. Longbows from Mr.Yo will work towards sniping down those horse archers, but the micro is very good from Zerton and StrikeR. The horse archers need to focus down the knights, and then the longbows just need to trade off evenly against the longbows of Mr.Yo. That town center is the last landmark for Yo, so should it go down, it is an automatic elimination for Yo, even though with just 20 population on the field, it is probably a game over for him anyways, but he's going to get knocked out of the game if that town center goes down. And that seems to be a more and more likely scenario at this point. With that town center gone, Mr.Yo is automatically defeated. On the right side, you still have Vivi technically alive. For whatever reason, the scoreboard completely disappeared. It wasn't me. Not even sure why that happened. But it looks like Vivi and Bad Koala will play on, because one thing that we haven't talked about is that Bad Koala has been trying to isolate Eery from the rest of the teammates. So far, he wasn't really successful, and I think that now the problem that you're facing if you're Vivi's team is that Zerton is sitting on 6 relics plus 3 sacred sites. So with the sacred site victory triggering at 1925, in 10 minutes at latest, Vivi's team is going to have to neutralize 1 sacred site. Horse archers now ready to push Vivi's base. Vivi is fully walled, but obviously at this point, it's not like StrikeR's team have to be very aggressive. They do have the sacred sites under their control, fairly sizable force of lancers for both Mongol players, but ultimately, this would be an even trade here, and this army is much larger than Vivi's one right now. The knights don't perform that well against the horse archers, as that is no less than 6 battering rams knocking through the walls of the Fat Dragon. Knock knock. Say the battering rams, as the blacksmith, the stables will go down quite rapidly. Couple of spearmen out here for Bad Koala, but they will all get picked apart by the longbowmen. And now, even if the landmarks aren't being taken down, I feel like the big thing is that VV is losing production. Now, VV aged up with the Royal Institute, which is something that White Wolf Palace does very often, so he's able to get the Royal Bloodlines upgrade in Castle Age. And that means that his knights are very powerful. 310 HP is nothing to joke about. The problem for them at this point is that they don't have anything against the horse archers unless they can get a good surround. If Bad Koala can swoop him from behind and get a good surround on those horse archers, that could be a saving grace. Here come the Night Push. Bad Koala needs to charge in, and this could be a make or break for White Wolf Palace. They must not let those horse archers escape, because if they do, they will just microwave from all those lancers. The lancers and the knights have a ton of HP on them, but the numbers still seem to be way better for Eery, Zerton, and StrikeR. Horse archers still able to run away. However, that's a ton of knights, and those are French knights with an Imperial Age upgrade. It's 310 HP on them right now, and most of the horse archers are going down. Is this going to be enough to turn this around 2 versus 3? I don't think so. But this was such a good fight, and it just tells you why VV was waiting for this one and why they didn't resign immediately. VV was confident that the French Royal Bloodlines upgrade is going to help them quite a bit, and he's 100% right. All of the horse archers got cleaned up. The majority of those longbows are also being taken down. But unless they're able to do significant damage to one of the opponent's players, either StrikeR or Eery, this is going to be very, very difficult to come back from. They will need to neutralize one sacred site and then start killing the economy of one opponent over here. It is a ton of wood going down the drain here as well for StrikeR, who lost 6 rams. Most of the longbows are now getting cleaned up. Yo is eliminated. StrikeR is still Feudal Age. Everybody else in the castle now. Sacred site being neutralized by VV, so he wants to play on, and he does have a powerful economy, but it is a 2 versus 3 scenario. Millie, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Thank you. As StrikeR's forces are getting cleaned up on the right side of this sacred site. Still, you do have 6 relics for the Rus player, 7 even, and that is the Spasskaya Tower and Imperial Age. Nili, also thank you so much for the resub. I appreciate that a lot as well. And I'm fairly certain that Zerton appreciates the 7 relics and the Imperial Age here for him. Little surprising that we are seeing him going up to the Spasskaya Tower and not the artillery landmark. But with that gold mine being exposed, the Spasskaya Tower gives quite a lot of safety to that. So there is definitely some positives. Lancer numbers now looking way better for Eery though, so this is going to be a difficult fight for Bad Koala to take. Meanwhile, on the left side, we still have some knights from the Fat Dragon, but unless he's able to do a tremendous amount of damage on StrikeR's base, this is going to be a difficult fight. Spearmen already being assembled by StrikeR. He knows exactly that right now, White Wolf Palace is lacking the archer component from their army on the left side, so if he just goes full spearman, we won't be able to do much against him, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Only hardened spearmen, but I would be very surprised not to see veteran spearmen come up in the moment he reaches Castle Age. It is now elite horse archers for Zerton though, Imperial Age army with very good upgrades. He does have Royal or the Boyar's upgrade as well, and he's going to have flaming arrows soon. This is going to be an army that's next to impossible to stop with Castle Age units, and the truth is that the army is just not large enough for VV to fight this, and he's very far from Imperial Age. He's going to try to make a charge on this one, but there is spearmen supporting coming in, and if you look at the right side, it is going to be a dead even trade of knights between Eery and Bad Koala, but that just means that Bad Koala, who is behind in economy, will lose his forces. His opponent Eery will still have some on the battlefield, and those will start running into the eco. And on the left side, that is probably the more decisive fight. Horse archers, spearmen, pushing the Fat Dragon back. 2 versus 3, this seems extremely difficult, especially if you consider the fact that the pocket player, the Rus, has 7 relics and 2 sacred sites still working for him. And all across the map, we're seeing palisades being dropped by StrikeR. He just wants to make sure that there is no sudden raid that's coming in. The Fat Dragon taps out, and with that, Eery, Zerton, and StrikeR take game number 1. Great show by both teams. Very, very nice play. I think the key decision point was a very, very aggressive Feudal Age from White Wolf Palace that wasn't really supported by Bad Koala. Bad Koala basically played a separate 1v1 on the right side versus Eerie, which was rather even. But because of that, the Rus and the English on the left side were able to overwhelm Yo's and Vivi's forces, and in the end, Yo's forward got cleaned up, so the counterattack managed to finish him off, lost villagers quite rapidly. There was one specific fight, this one, that probably decided things. Significant losses of numbers here for Mr.Yo because they take quite disadvantageous fight here. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in Clash of Clanners. ZertoN, StrikeR, and Eerie versus White Wolf Palace, Bad Koala, Lix, and Vivi. We had a game crash in the previous attempt to play Hill and Dale, so it is going to be a restart. It was a rather even game. It was something like 10 minutes when it crashed. Both teams were able to secure the relics they needed, and they just reached Castle Age. There was minimal fighting going on, so the best decision to make was to make a restart. On the left side, we will have White Wolf Palace with Bad Koala playing as the Chinese in the pocket. In the flank, it is going to be Vivi playing as the Rus in green, and we will have Lix playing as the Holy Roman Empire as the other flank in teal. Meanwhile, on the other side, we will have Eerie playing as the red Holy Roman Empire's flank. In the pocket, it's going to be StrikeR playing as the yellow French, and last but not least, it is going to be ZertoN as the Chinese flank on the north in blue. The map is Hill and Dale, so each team starts on the top of a hill with multiple entrances. This time around, there's a lot more than we had before. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a fifth one over here, and strictly speaking, this technically is supposed to be an entrance as well, although it's at the back of the hill, so you're likely just going to wall this one off if you are a StrikeR's team. On the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entrances once again for White Wolf Palace. So looking at the civilizations, the first thing to consider is that Vivi, being the only Rus player, is likely going to get a ton of bounty for himself. Now in the previous attempt, he didn't go very, very aggressive on the deer collection, but I think this time around he should. So the first thing to do, I think, for him is actually grab the deer down in the Dale area, because you will be killing your teammates' deer as well. As you see, he's already doing that at Bad Koala's base, but it's something that you can wait a tiny bit with. You probably want to kill the deer for the Chinese player first because he wants to use the mill on the hunt, but you might be able to wait a tiny bit for Lix's hunt, because he's not taking it at all right now. So for Vivi, it would make a little more sense to send this scout to the Dale area and go for the sheep or go for the hunt that could potentially be contested. To an end time bounty already in, as we do have ZertoN on the right side playing with the mill on the berries as compared to the other Chinese player who is going to be placing that on the hunt. At the beginning, it's probably better to go for the hunt with that mill, but obviously, at some point, you're going to have to make a mill for Bad Koala on the berries as well, so not a massive difference maker, I would say. Looking at the Aachen Chapel coming in for Eerie, that's going to be a beautiful position. It should be able to cover these gold miners, the villagers on food, and also the lumberjacks over here to the north. So very nice Aachen Chapel positioning out here, as Vo is already coming up for Bad Koala's team. As I mentioned in the previous attempt to play this game, which ultimately crashed, there is some intrigue in the Rus walling the entire team, because the Rus player would have access to the fortified palisade walls, so those would be a little sturdier. On the other hand, most of the players will be mining stone here, so there is also an option to just stonewall yourself with the teammate that does mine stone, because Bad Koala is likely going to mine stone here for himself, or is he? Ooh, Bad Koala is changing things up. He's not mining stone. He is not mining stone. So, at this point, it is likely going to be a fast castle style build from him. He changes things up compared to the previous attempt. There is no rule that prevents players from changing their strategy if there is a restart. The civilizations, the map has to be the same, but their strategy can obviously change. So, he's not mining stone at all. And, oh boy, what did that sheep do to you? Looks like it's intentional. Bad Qual is killing the sheep, so he buys himself a couple of valuable villager seconds. Not something that's really massive over here, but obviously every second could count. Was up in the middle, White Wolf Palace not doing a ton more walling on the right side or the left side though. A villager is just now moving out for licks. Meanwhile, for Eery, he's going to have a very nicely positioned prelate already in the Alchan Chapel. School of Cavalry coming in for StrikeR. This will give him the chance to go for a couple of knights and contest the map. He's on stone, so he will be playing with 2 town centers. On the right side, we do have stone being mined by ZertoN. He's going for the Imperial Academy, so he's going to have additional tax revenue coming in, and he's also going to play 2 town centers with Song Dynasty soon. And last but not least, for Bad Koala, he's now sending villagers to stone. So in the end, he's going to play 2 town centers, but he delayed his stone mining quite a bit. Walls are up for licks on the left side. On the right side, we're still missing some wall sections from Vivi. He's a little slow doing that. Now, against the civilizations that his opponent has, I think you are fine delaying your walls because you're unlikely to face a ton of early pressure. If your opponent had something like Mongols, it would make a ton more sense to try and get yourself walled early, because Mongols could very well come for a spearman rush and try to delay you, hit your economy, and slow down your boom. So, against these civilizations, you're perfectly fine walling late, but against some other civilizations, you would have to wall a lot earlier than this one for White Wolf Palace. So one thing I did mention before the previous game attempt was that White Wolf Palace played a show match versus Vietnam Legends on this map, and they lost it. I think the civilization matchup was pretty similar. However, the way they lost it was with a Wonder victory, so I wonder... Get it? I wonder if they are going to play something similar to that, because on this map, playing a Wonder victory is not something that's completely out of the box. Second town center coming in for Vivi, so he's going to play the same strategy. 2 town center play with the Rus. He's only at 440 bounty though, so it's not as spectacular as it was before. There is still some hunt in the Dale area to take down potentially. No, there isn't. Previous game, Vivi could get to 400 or 700 bounty. Now it's only at 440, and the reason why that hurts him is because this way he wasn't able to unlock tier 3 of the bounty, and that's gonna hurt. Now, still, he could go for the boars at some point and get to 500, but obviously that's going to be delayed quite a bit. Let's already moving out to try and grab some relics. That's pretty standard at this point, because you want to grab those relics as fast as possible, and once Castle Age is in for licks, he can start picking those up. You see, Eery has a scout out here though, so he knows exactly licks is coming for the prelate, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a knight coming from StrikeR. He's got a School of Cavalry going for him, so he could go for a knight, and indeed here comes the first Royal Knight. 2 town centers right now for StrikeR. He's gonna have a great economy with those faster training French villagers, and it looks like Lix is going for a relic that's the furthest away. Tower coming up for Vivi on that lumberjack line. It is going to be just exclusively to boost the lumberjacking on that lumber camp, because at this point he's fully evolved, so that defensive tower wouldn't really serve any other purpose. Another scout is coming in, this time around by StrikeR. He's going to try and finish off that prelate, even without the support of the knight. First prelate moving in for licks. He actually has to take down a wolf here. That wolf could have helped a lot for Vivi, of course, but at this point you have to kill it, otherwise it's going to eat your prelate. The prelate goes down over here, and here comes Eery to try and grab that one himself. Meanwhile, up north, we do have some wolves coming in. Vivi at 475 bounty right now, even kills the sheep, so he's picking up every single bit of bounty that he can find. Eery coming in with relic number 2 already, so he's going to have a nice start over here with the HRE. Whereas on the other side, for Lix, I think he was able to grab 1 relic, so he's going to bring that in, but obviously losing that 1 prelate is going to hurt, because now it's a little slower for him to grab relics. On the bright side of things, they do have Rus, and with the Rus, once Vivi gets to Castle Age, which should be pretty soon, indeed, his resources are looking better and better, so with the Rus, you are going to be able to pick up some relics for your teammate with your warrior monks. As things stand, Vivi is still pretty active, trying to collect as much hunt as he can. StrikeR trying to deny that as best can, but so far he wasn't really able to, so Lix can continue faring in there, and that's going to give him a very nice food economy. Looking at the resource income per minute, which is something I always forget to switch to, best food income belongs to StrikeR and Vivi at this point. Stone only now collected by Bad Koala. Wonder if that's going to be a free town center boom even. And indeed, that's the case. Free town centers for Bad Koala is in Song Dynasty as well. So his economy is looking very good. But one thing that's not looking good is Lix losing that second prelate. So StrikeR with the knight, he's controlling the map very nicely. And with that, he's able to deny relics from his opponent. This is why I'm not necessarily a big fan of the 2TC play from the Rus. I feel like with the Rus, you have to contest those relics and take them away from the opponent. Because you see, here he already has 3 relics. So if he brings in any extra, he can give it to teammates or he can just garrison them into the monastery. Meanwhile, Barbican of the Sun will make sure that this knight will never accomplish anything, even if he gets through that wall, which is something that's still unlikely. And you got Castle Age in for Vivi, he's going in for a Warrior Monk. You will have to make sure that Ragnitz Cathedral is fully filled. It has 2 relics, so the first relic that Vivi brings in has to go into that cathedral. Looking at the villager counts real quickly, we do have 48 for Vivi, 29 only for Lix, but obviously he's playing the Holy Roman Empire. He's going for the Ragnitz Cathedral and the fast Imperial with the Palace of Swabia. So he's gonna be able to make up for that. 59 villagers for Bad Koala, 33 only for Eerie, but he's the other Holy Roman Empire player, so no surprise about that either. And last but not least, StrikeR at 52. ZertoN is at 68 though. 68 villagers is by far the best. ZertoN is playing with 3 town centers as well, with the Chinese. That Imperial Pass is also boosting a ton of tax gathering over here, so it's going to be a nice little bit of extra gold to work with. Some knights on the way for Lix, so he's getting sick of his prelates being picked off. He's going to send in some Castle Age knights to deal with this one. These are only Feudal Age Royal Knights, so Lix should be able to win on even number terms. If it's 3 versus 2, I still think that the Yellow Knights will win here. Looks like Lix isn't engaging in this one just yet. He's looking to take a fight as a couple of forward barracks come in. This is something that you often see with the Holy Roman Empire, this sort of proxy barracks style playstyle, because their infantry moves quite slowly compared to horse archers, compared to the knights, of course. So it takes a little more time to reinforce the battlefield if you make your army back at home. Makes some sense to make some forward production buildings and reinforce them from here. Now looking at Lix, in comes Imperial Age for him. He's going up with the Palace of Swabia, as you would expect. In the middle, we do have a couple of villagers intercepted as well. Lix is just in a world of pain right now. That is going to be 2 villagers intercepted, a 3rd one survives, a 4th one also gets picked off, and I wonder if these villagers just try to get some forward barracks going over here, but they will all be picked apart. 1 villager still survives, but Lix is not really happy about this one, that's for sure. Obviously, he's got the Palace of Swabia to work with, but so does Eerie. So at the end of the day, Eerie is going to be ahead compared to Lix. Barracks now coming in, and we are seeing some spearmen being added by Eerie. Up north, Vivi, however, has a pretty powerful economy himself. So don't underestimate Vivi. He's at 61 villagers. He doesn't have a single relic with the Rus, but obviously priority is to make sure that his teammate has those relics. So once Vivi brings in the rest of those relics with the warrior monks, he should focus on giving those Lix. He's still ferrying in there, so that's going to give him a very nice food economy to work with. Meanwhile, Prelate once again getting intercepted. Looks like the relic collection was a little more successful for ZertoN's team, because as things stand, Vivi has no relics, Lix has 3 relics to work with, so the rest of the relics need to be in the hands of StrikeR's team, and it looks like StrikeR is coming in with some stone walls in the middle. Now that's going to give them quite a lot of map control, and if you look at the sacred site positions, 2 of them are on this side of the map, and the 3rd one is closer to Vivi's team. So if you stonewall these, you could actually get yourself a pretty decent amount of extra gold from the sacred sites as well. Forward barracks coming in from Vivi already. Some spearmen coming into the battlefield, but these spearmen don't really have great upgrades. They only have the hardened upgrade, so those knights should have no trouble dealing with them, especially considering that those spearmen for the Holy Roman Empire can't brace. So I think the big difference maker must be Vivi at this point, because Lix is definitely behind compared to his Holy Roman Empire counterpart. When it comes to ZertoN versus Bad Koala, ZertoN's economy was also slightly better. So Vivi has to be the difference maker with the Rus, but that's gonna be difficult, especially against a French player that has been booming on 2 town centers. And he also has the Guild Hall. Stables are coming in, and those stables will allow you to go for Royal Knights. Obviously, Royal Knights with the Royal Bloodlines upgrade is gonna be super powerful. And it looks like we do have a couple of Knights breaking in here by Licks, but those are pretty much trapped. The stone walls were completed by ZertoN, and at the end of the day, those 2 Knights and the Scout is just going to be trapped in there. Now, obviously, they can technically burn their way through here, but in the end, a couple of Knights from ZertoN will be dispatched to deal with this one. Up north, we have some Spearmen slowly trickling in, some Siege Workshops as well for Licks. Vivi getting close to Imperial Age as well. Minimal fighting going on so far, as we do have a Warrior Monk from Vivi neutralizing that Sacred Site. Full Stone Walls coming in for ZertoN's team, so now I think it's gonna come down to whoever thinks about the somewhat out-of-the-box approach of going for a Wonder. You can technically play a long game here, but it's very possible that you just go for a Wonder and then force your opponent to make a move, because as things stand, things are escalating quite slowly. There is still one relic to pick up over here for either team. It's a little closer to White Wolf Palace, so it's a little easier for them to pick up, but obviously with some Knights over here from StrikeR, he's able to deny that for a little longer. Imperial Age missing for StrikeR, ZertoN, and Bad Koala. We already have Imp as well for Vivi. Vivi is still missing the 25 bounty he needs for the tier 3, and that hurts quite badly. He desperately needs to take down a boar, because if he kills that boar, he's gonna be a tier 3, and it's not about the 75 extra gold. What was that? Was apparently a bit of a lag spike. Hopefully it's not a crash. Horse Archers now coming in for the Fat Dragon. That is the real power of the Rus here. The Horse Archers will be a very, very resource efficient unit. They also don't cost you gold, so you don't have to contest that much of the middle. Meanwhile, Spearman slowly crawling forward for Licks. That should allow him to potentially contest this relic. There is still a decent amount of units out here though for ZertoN, and we're already seeing Fire Lancers come in. Now, this is where having the Holy Roman Empire Spearman out there for you is a little problematic, because you can't brace against the Fire Lancers. And this way, the Fire Lancers will be guaranteed to deliver their charge damage. If your Spearman could brace, you could negate that explosive blast and just negate the area damage of the Fire Lancers. So you really need Spearmen that are able to brace, I do believe. That could be from the Chinese, that could be from even the Rus, but I think Rus want to play Horse Archers, Chinese want to play Fire Lancers. But this is why oftentimes you see Mongols being the third civilization, because they can go for very nice Spearmen that are capable of bracing. Horse Archers now moving in for Vivi. He has gotten mounted precision as well, so he's going to have 6.5 range on those Horse Archers, but those Horse Archers have to be the difference maker. Vololo attempt coming in from Eery, and he is not getting a single conversion on those Horse Archers. The Vololo just take so much time to grab. The attempt was beautiful. He intercepted all those Horse Archers, and Vivi didn't even notice, but it just takes too much time to get that Vololo in. Spearman Flood, though, pursuing all those Horse Archers, so Vivi is gonna have to retreat for the time being. Vivi could have picked up that relic while his opponent was pursuing the Horse Archers, but he wasn't paying attention. So ultimately, the relic is still yet to be picked up. Nice charge over there by that Fire Lancer, picking off 2 Horse Archers. Here's the big flood of Horse Archers, though, and that is going to take down 1, 2, 3 Fire Lancers. One way to deal with all those Fire Lancers would be a decent group of Horse Archers, because the Fire Lancers are light cavalry, don't have a great pierce armor. In fact, they do not have a single range defense right now for ZertoN, so the Horse Archers can do a ton of damage against them. Meanwhile, we do have the University in for Vivi, so he's coming in with the Flaming Arrows tech for himself. Stone Walls already being set up by ZertoN's team on the north, as Boyar's Fortitude just now is coming in, and a Red Palace, the Imperial Age landmark of StrikeR, is going to be placed in the middle of the map. Now, there is some risk involved with that, because it could even get denied. But as things stand, it is going up, and the red pass is a very, very powerful landmark to use. So that is going to be a difficult angle to push from for White Wolf Palace. For now, I think they're satisfied pushing on the left side, though, because that force of Horse Archers, supported by Fire Lancers, most definitely looks scary. Oh boy, talking about denying though, and this could be massive. The Fire Lancers are coming in with their explosive tips. Horse Archers are also on the way. Fire Lancers will exchange some shots, and at the end of the day, I think since the Horse Archers are not focusing the villagers, this Red Palace might go up. Villagers could have been focused down by the Horse Archers a tiny bit earlier, and indeed, StrikeR is able to edge out that Imperial Age. Very, very close one though for him. That could have been an absolute disaster if the Fire Lancers charge on the villagers or if the Horse Archers just focus them. That could have been a landmark denied, and now you see the firepower of that Red Palace just absolutely annihilating a force of Horse Archers here. Spearman getting one shot without any major issues. That is an extremely powerful defensive landmark to have. On the right side, we do have some Horse Archers. These are scouts, actually. The scouts are trying to stop the walls, but walls are already complete. Stone walls coming in for White Wolf Palace as well. And we still do see some markets as well coming up for White Wolf Palace to trade with this neutral market out here. On the left side, HRE men-at-arms are slowly moving up. We do have mostly spearmen, but some men-at-arms mixed in as well for Eerie. Fire Lancers, though, coming in from Bat Koala, and they will take that landmark down quite rapidly. This landmark is extremely powerful when it comes to firepower, but one thing it doesn't do that well is take down a large amount of units, as the Fire Lancers will just charge in and absolutely disintegrate all those villagers. So with that, the Fire Lancers were able to take down Red Palace without any major issues. Stone walls are still something that will keep them out for some time, but there is an opening here that they could cross. Lix's forces coming in and cleaning up some of Eerie's army on this side. There is attack notifications going off inside the base of White Wolf Pass every once in a while, because there was one scout from StrikeR that was harassing stuff here. So annoying for White Wolf Palace, as they're also coming in with the Great Wall of China. Some trade being established by Eerie's team as well. A little surprising given how much gold there is left to mine, but I guess they're preparing for a long game. There is going to be a monastery coming in for Lix. He wants to pick that relic up desperately. Forward monastery coming in as the Horse Archers are now moving in to try and intercept all those spearmen and the men-at-arms. We haven't really seen much from the Knights of StrikeR. He's still missing Royal Bloodlines, as the Knights do charge into the Fire Lancers. So in this type of fight, you want to disengage with the Fire Lancers and then come back in, because otherwise they're just fighting spearmen. They're getting absolutely mowed down by the spears. The Holy Roman Empire spearmen can't brace, but that charge only lasts for a couple of seconds. So everything that survives after the charge will be able to massacre those Fire Lancers if they don't disengage and charge back in. Horse Archers picking apart all the infantry though, as we have a forward position being fortified by Lix, coming in with multiple towers. Wouldn't be surprised to see weapon emplacements being placed on them. Mangonel added by Eerie. He's going to try and get a big shot on top of those Horse Archers. The Horse Archers are somewhat spread out, but the charge is nice. And from behind is the force of Zerton coming in. Nice charge on the Horse Archers. Absolutely sandwiched in between a Mangonel and some Fire Lancers. Big losses for Vivi in that fight. The fight continues to rage as the numbers seem to be way better for StrikeR's team. Infantry Flood coming in, Eerie mixing in some Landsknechte, as well as the Spearmen, of course. Retreat is called by White Wolf Palace for time being. They need to reinforce those Horse Archers because they lost considerable numbers. Fire Lancers growing in numbers once again for Bat Koala, but they really need to regroup because the fight that they have taken was quite underwhelming. Horse Archers retreating all the way back to Vivi's base, but that basically leaves this side abandoned. Castle coming in from Eerie. The fight is still raging for this one relic out here, which is just absolutely crazy. Horse Archers now coming back to the battlefield with spread out formation. They do have most of their upgrades in, so they're a fairly powerful force to be reckoned with. And something that is extremely cheap to replenish as well for Vivi. It doesn't cost him gold, and that's going to help quite a bit in the long run. Stone Walls coming in for Bad Koala as he's trying to stop another Fire Lancer raid from coming in. ZertoN with a sizable force of Fire Lancers moving in from the right side. Looks like it is going to be a clash of Fire Lancers and Knights, but once again, when the Fire Lancers aren't using their explosive tips, the Knights will just smash them in the face so easily. So Bad Koala needs to make sure that he keeps disengaging after a successful charge. Horse Archers now moving in to deal with the Spearmen and the Knights. The Knights are still missing Royal Bloodlines, and that's something that needs to be monitored because that is an extremely powerful upgrade to grab in Imperial Age for the French. Fire Lancers moving in now, and this castle is quite exposed to this Fire Lancer aggression. Some villagers nearby as well. Those will go down to the Fire Lancers quite rapidly. Fire Lancers though coming in from Bad Koala as well, and he will just exchange shots against the ones of ZertoN. So ultimately that seems like a cleanup, and on the left side you do have the Horse Archers slowly crawling up and pushing back the forces of StrikeR's team. Convo is yet to be completed on the north for Bad Koala, but both teams now settling in for a very long game over here with all those stone walls. Markets are being set up to trade as well. Technically speaking, you don't even need the neutral market to trade with. You can use your teammates' markets, but both of those neutral markets are nice and conveniently located at the edge, so you might think about using them, especially for White Wolf Palace. Horse Archers now moving forward as we got some bombards on the battlefield. These are just Holy Roman Empire bombards, not Chinese. Would be nice to see the Chinese player going for bombards, but obviously he wants to spend all his population on Fire Lancers. Speaking of Fire Lancers, we have a clash of Fire Lancers on the right side. The Red Palace is right now being repaired by StrikeR, once again allowing them to establish a nice map position, but that's a much better number of Fire Lancers for Bad Koala. Horse Archers also coming in. It looks like all the Fire Lancers come to the right side, so once again, this landmark, the Red Palace, will be very short-lived. I'm not even sure if it will be fully repaired before going down, because as things stand, the Fire Lancers could just charge in and smash it in the face. A couple of torches, and that Red Palace goes down. Meanwhile, on the left side, we also have a large amount of Horse Archers for VV. Just for the records, it's 86 Horse Archers right now. We're talking about for the Fat Dragon, and he's splitting them into rather even groups of about 40. One on the right side, one on the left side. And the one on the left side is able to deal with all the infantry, supporting the bombards of Licks, and the one on the right side is able to support the Fire Lancers of Bad Koala. Now we have full upgrades for StrikeR's Knights though, so they'll be a force to be reckoned with, and we also have some bombards coming in for Eerie. Horse Archers with the flaming arrows can actually take them down quite rapidly, so you see 2 volleys should be able to finish off an otherwise quite expensive bombard, and it looks like on the left side, White Wolf Palace is winning this fight. To the north, we do have the Red Palace still lit ablaze, and now the Fire Lancers are switching direction. Both players with the Fire Lancers coming into the left side. Big clash of forces coming in. Who's gonna get the better charge with the Fire Lancers? Because that's a big question. You have to have a successful charge in here. So far, ZertoN isn't able to charge in with his forces, and that allows BB to just pick apart all the forces from StrikeR and Eerie. Now here comes ZertoN with his own charge. Horse Archers completely untouched from behind though, and they will just rain down death and destruction on all those forces. Fire Lancers though not being focused down by the Horse Archers, and they are still alive here for ZertoN, whereas Bad Koala has been losing numbers left and right. The fight just continues to rage on here, and in the end this is gonna be a rather even trade of armies, except for the fact that all the Horse Archers are still alive. Fire Lancers now closing the distance though, so you gotta be careful with those Horse Archers, but not a lot of Fire Lancers remain on the battlefield. Some Cobrains hitting the field to try and snipe down the siege weapons of Licks as a big Knight charge comes in from StrikeR. StrikeR with those fully upgraded French Knights, now these will be excellent to soak up arrow fire. But here comes the next wave of Fire Lancers. Licks is very low on army numbers though. Just a handful of Landsknechte and Men-at-Arms on the battlefield. Fire Lancer charge coming in here, trying to get some nice hits on those Knights. Not a lot of those Fire Lancers use their charge though, and it's going to slow things down over here. Horse Archers running into the Spearmen though, the Mangonel getting a nice shot as well, and a bit of a traffic jam forming in the middle here, as many of those Horse Archers will get some hits from the Spearmen. Still, most of the Horse Archer mass is still alive, and that's quite important right now. for the Fat Dragon. Multiple Mangonels now taking shots though, and the Horse Archers can't really get close. And with the next wave of Fire Lancers coming in, I feel like a disaster is about to happen here for White Wolf Palace, because those Fire Lancers are coming from behind. Horse Archers try to dive in and snipe the Mangonels, but that is going to have a price. That is going to be a surround of the Horse Archers, many of them going down to the Fire Lancers or those fully upgraded French Knights over there. Still lacking numbers severely for Lix here, because as things stand, he's the one that doesn't have any army on the battlefield. If you look at Lix's POV, he's at 151 population only, and now it is a decisive advantage when it comes to army numbers on the right side. And did I just see a wonder come up? No. I'm not seeing any wonders come up. For a moment I thought that's the case, and honestly, either of the teams could actually think about a wonder. Because as things stand, if you go for a wonder, it is somewhat doubtful that your opponent can push all the way to that wonder in 15 minutes of a time. The wonder countdown is 15 minutes. Nice choke point over here for White Wolf Palace though, will help quite a lot for those Horse Archers. Fire Lancer mass rebuilt once again. Lix is also recovering his previous strength, and the Stone Walls will hold off the forces of StrikeR's team for some time. 2 Sacred Sites versus 1 on the side of... Actually, it's 3 Sacred Sites. Hold on for a brief moment. We have a Sacred Site countdown going. All 3 Sacred Sites are under the control of StrikeR's team. So we have less than 10 minutes until White Wolf Palace will lose this game on a Sacred Site terms. 2 are under the control of StrikeR, and 1 under the control of ZertoN over here. Still a large force from White Wolf Palace here, but it's gonna be difficult to contest either of those Sacred Sites, because 2 are very deep into the territory of ZertoN's team, and the one on the north is also stonewalled off. Mangonel shot, getting a nice hit on top of those Horse Archers. Just the Mangonel being able to fire from behind and rain down death and destruction on those Horse Archers is so impactful in this battle. Lix still severely lacking forces on the battlefield. The Horse Archers are doing work. If you look at all those military numbers, 385 kills already for Vivi, only 194 losses, but they're constantly fighting outnumbered, and it's getting harder and harder for White Wolf Palace to hold this one. StrikeR even coming in with some Stone Walls over here to try and slow down the push of White Wolf Palace as much as possible. Horse Archer still getting some nice hits in, and now it is the forces of Eery that are decreasing in numbers. Suddenly a counterattack could be a very likely possibility by White Wolf Palace. Still a fairly sizable force of Elite Royal Knights are in here for StrikeR, so you gotta be very careful, otherwise you're going to have a lot of Knights charging in. They tried to snap down the Bombards, but the Knights will jump on top of those Horse Archers. Fire Lancers also join the party. Now those fully upgraded Imperial Age Knights from the French will show their power. Numbers are still way better at this point for StrikeR's team, and they are the one with the Sacred Site countdown going for them. Big choke point fight over here is definitely something that's going to help those Horse Archers. They keep decimating the numbers of ZertoN, but at this point ZertoN's team is just focusing down on slowing down Vivi's advance, because at this point you slow down White Wolf Palace, you win the game, and there is the surround coming in from the other side. StrikeR playing an exceptional game with those French Knights. He came in with all those forces from behind, and now the Fire Lancers can charge in. This could be an absolutely decisive moment in this game. What a beautiful surround here by StrikeR and ZertoN. StrikeR looping in from the north with the Knights, and then ZertoN coming in with the Fire Lancers to just kill all of those clumped up Horse Archers and prevent their escape. Horse Archers still in decent numbers, but time is slowly running out for White Wolf Palace. They just don't seem to have enough army on the field. They do have the Horse Archers, but everything else is just lacking right now. If you look at Bad Koala's population, it is at 200, but you just don't see that army. So, unless it's somewhere else, which it is on the right side, it's not doing much. You have to blast your way through these walls, and then you have a chance of neutralizing one Sacred Site. This one is somewhat fortified with towers and a keep, but it's not impossible to take down once you get yourself through these walls. You have to blast your way through these walls before the Fire Lancers can take down those buildings and neutralize the Sacred Site. And I've been bashing Lix unjustly here in this one, because one thing that we didn't spot yet is that while Lix didn't have army in the middle, he did have army coming from the south, and he's coming in to try and neutralize the Sacred Site. 3 bombards blasting through the walls and then taking down that keep. All the forces of StrikeR will be sent to the south to deal with this one. A sizable force of Royal Knights and now Fire Lancers will be diverted. But with all of these units being diverted, this gives a window to have all those Horse Archers potentially push up the middle, but it's gonna be difficult against 4 Mangonels and so many Spearmen, especially in such a narrow choke point situation. Bombards now setting up for Vivi to try and blast through the walls, but the Spearmen do charge in, and they will be able to take down 1 Bombard. The second one is going to be torched down as well. Horse Archers are decimating those Spearmen numbers, but the siege is also being taken down. The Sacred Site down south is still under the control of StrikeR's team, and on the north, you need something that blasts through those walls, but that is imminent. Bombard's already out for Bad Koala to bash his way through those walls, and that's going to be very difficult to keep control over that Sacred Site for StrikeR's team, because that's a fairly sizable force of Fire Lancers, and all they need to do is just neutralize that Sacred Site. A narrow choke point here is just so problematic to deal with for Vivi. 4 Mangonels set up ready to shoot at the Horse Archers that are trying to bash their way through that hole. In general, these narrow choke points are starting to hurt Vivi's forces, as he's just exposed to so much Mangonel fire. Large fight on the left side coming in, with StrikeR's Knights taking an engagement against the Spearmen, not something that they have to be satisfied with, because at this point, many of those Knights got decimated by the Spearmen, the Men-at-Arms, and the Landsknechte. And on the right side, the Fire Lancers are severely outnumbering the forces of Zerton. The Bombard is very close to bashing his way through the wall, villagers being dispatched to repair. In the middle, still sort of a stalemate with multiple Mangonels and Bombards out now for Eerie. How on the earth has Eerie gotten a mill up here? I have no idea, but it's definitely an interesting topic to talk about if we had any time to do it, because right now there's just constant non-stop action going on. The gate is still being repaired, but with the Horse Archers being dispatched, they should be able to pick off the villagers behind the walls and allow the Bombard to blast through. The Bombard is getting through, and now the Fire Lancers can jump on that keep. Multiple towers with cannon emplacements out there. Fire Lancers out here as well, and you have Burning Oil as well on that keep. But the numbers are way better for Bad Koala right now. If he can take down that keep, I think they will have enough to neutralize the Sacred Site. Most of the Fire Lancers are gone. In the middle, big force is being assembled by Eerie though, and he's ready to push through these walls. He was able to force away Vivi's forces. Vivi coming in with the Horse Archers, and now it's once again a surround attempt. All the Fire Lancers are exchanging shots, and at this point, looks like StrikeR and Zerton are still holding the right side. The Royal Knights and the Fire Lancers will just take down Bad Koala's forces, and we're back where we came from. White Wolf Palace struggling to push. Mangonels are being set up by Vivi though to try and deal with some of those Fire Lancers, and a couple of good volleys could easily wipe them out. Indeed, nice Mangonel shots dealing with the majority of the Fire Lancers. The Knights will take down the Mangonels. Sacred Site being neutralized by Vivi down south though. The moment the cavalry move to the north, it is going to be Lix moving in to neutralize the Sacred Site. And with that, I feel like that Sacred Site victory is getting close to being nullified. The cavalry just need to stay inside that circle, but as long as the Sacred Site is contested, the countdown isn't going on. Cavalry now moving in, significant numbers in here for StrikeR. I feel like they're able to outnumber Lix's forces, and I'm not sure if Lix is going to be able to neutralize this. But while that's happening, up north, once again an attempt by White Wolf Palace to take control over that. Just a couple of Bombards from Eerie though, moving in and killing all the villagers from Bad Koala. The fact that White Wolf Palace is so desperate to neutralize Sacred Sites helps so much for StrikeR's team here, just to make sure that make that push in the middle. Mangonels are set up though to deal with all the infantry here from Eerie. Lix has a ton of siege, but not enough infantry to back this one up with. And it looks like now Eerie and StrikeR are keeping White Wolf Palace out of this position. Up north, Fire Lancers coming in though, and Zerton's forces are slowly being taken down. There is still some walls up here, and you see Zerton is just ready to fortify this one. Second keep, multiple towers coming in. I think that we are getting very close to that Sacred Site victory. It's like 3-4 minutes away at this point. There's no way for us to track that. Mangonels freaking out a little bit in the middle as we do have emergency repairs being popped. for Bad Call over here. Zerton trying to blast a hole through those walls and let his own Fire Lancers flood in. On the right side, the Horse Archers are still doing work, but at this point, the positional warfare of StrikeR, Zerton, and Eery are just exceptional. What they are doing is that they have fairly mobile armies, if you think about it. You have Eery with the infantry covering the middle and the southern sacred side, and then they have the Fire Lancers and Knights coming in to support. Grenadiers hitting the field, not something that you see every day in competitive Age of Empires. Very, very expensive to get to Ming Dynasty, but once you get there, Grenadiers can work very, very nicely. Especially if you have a meat shield in front, they can throw a couple of grenades on those Horse Archers and potentially wipe out that entire army. Here come the Grenadiers, and let's see how they do against those Horse Archers. They do quite decently. They're fairly fragile themselves, so you need to be very, very cautious to always have a meat shield in front as the Fire Lancers keep exchanging shots against each other. Most of the Grenadiers slowly going down. The walls are still intact though, and we had a 3 minutes notification. Now it's a 2 minutes notification. 2 minutes remaining until Eery, StrikeR, and Zerton win the game on a sacred site terms. Walls are being blasted through, but can you neutralize that sacred site with multiple towers and castles defending it? Down south, we do have a big infantry push coming in from Lix though. Quite a lot of Landsknechte in that army, and that's going to help balance things out. Some Mangonels also setting up for Lix, and that could be massive, because the Mangonels are able to wipe out Eery's army over here, and Lix might be in the position to neutralize this sacred site because everything that StrikeR's team has is focused on the north. The Fire Lancers will be able to take down Vivi's cannon. Vivi has lost considerable numbers, but Lix is very close to neutralizing that sacred site. It's now or never. You gotta neutralize this sacred site, otherwise the game is pretty much over. I don't think that they have enough time to make another push happen, and you see Eery is sending in villagers to torch down those bombards, but there are so many Mangonels, so much infantry set up over here. There's a castle supporting all the French knight production. Halfway done with the neutralization. Now Eery is going to send all his infantry to this side, but the Mangonel support from Lix is just so impactful. Eery is going to need his teammates to help him here. Otherwise, I don't think that he can hold this sacred site. However, if this sacred site is neutralized, White Wolf Palace still has a chance at surviving in this game. Looks like Zerton is going to keep focusing on the north here. Quite a lot of Grenadiers on the field, and with so much infantry with the Grenadiers and so much Fire Lancers in front to soak up the damage from the Horse Archers, the Grenadiers can perform really well. Looks like Vivi is getting forced back, but the big fight is happening down south. Sacred Site still halfway neutralized. Now, when the Sacred Site is neutralized, the countdown stops, so we're still like 1.5 minutes away from sacred victory. The Mangonels are working so effectively here from Lix from behind. They're just decimating all that infantry, but that neutralization is slowing down to a crawl. The bombards disappeared from Lix, and now you're seeing an increased influx of horsemen coming in from StrikeR, supported by some knights coming from the north. They know exactly that this sacred site is the make or break position in this game, because I don't think that Vivi's team has enough time to neutralize the one on the north. So you're gonna neutralize the one on the south, and you see the most important thing for them is to keep some units inside that circle all the time, because the countdown doesn't progress when the sacred site is neutralized. However, if you lose this sacred site, the entire countdown will just reset. So you have to make sure that it isn't getting neutralized. Slowly but surely, it looks like Lix is running out of juice, but up north, Fire Lancers are moving in. And with the forces of StrikeR focusing down south, now there is a window for Vivi's team to push the north. Towers slowly being taken down. Cannon have a hard time setting up, but that is going to be 5 bombards to take down the keeps with. Down south, it looks like Lix's push is still going on. And at this point, he's buying time for his teammates. He's buying time for Bat Koala and Vivi to neutralize that sacred site up north. I don't think that Lix is gonna be able to neutralize this. There's just so much beef over here. He's doing his best, and those Mangonels in that choke point work out perfectly. They are doing so much damage to the infantry of Eery. They're doing so much damage to the knights, and at this point, the knights are now facing a lot of spearmen, so this is no longer cost efficient either. And now the sacred site is being neutralized by the bombards. Grenadiers, maybe a mistake from Zerton, because the fact that he's going for Grenadiers means that he's no longer able to fit in that many Fire Lancers to his population space. And that's going to hurt him, because now we don't have enough Fire Lancers for him. Grenadiers have lower mobility, so it's a little slower of reaction, and White Wolf Palace neutralizes the sacred site down south, and they are very close to neutralizing the one on the north as well. It's not over yet, ladies and gentlemen, because White Wolf Palace stands strong. They neutralize the sacred site, so the countdown resets, and we continue on deeper and deeper into this game, and now I feel like the momentum is on WWP's side, because if you look at the left side, Lix is breaking through, and guess what? Some trade cards from StrikeR are moving to this market. These carry 400 gold a piece, just for reference. That is just a tremendous amount of gold income. But look at the right side. Fire Lancers supported by Horse Archers, some Bombards. We also have some Grenadiers being mixed in now by Bat Koala, mirroring the movements of Zerton. But Vivi is going to be able to hold the right side with the Horse Archers, and that is going to let Lix push down south, and this southern part is wide open. There were never any walls here for StrikeR's team, and their corner is wide open. Now obviously, when it comes to gold income, they still have some gold to mine as well, but as we go deeper and deeper into the game, trade is going to be more and more impactful. And there is a wonder. There is a wonder coming in. As I mentioned before this game, White Wolf Palace played against Vietnam Legends, as on the right side we do have Fire Lancers torching down all those Bombards. Bit of a mismicro there by Vivi, and he loses a lot of his siege. But from this point on, if you make a wonder and just defend it, you can win the game. White Wolf Palace did a game versus Vietnam Legends on this map in a show match. Vietnam Legends won in a very similar civilization matchup in a very similar situation, sort of a stalemate in the middle, with a wonder. Now the Grenadiers, though, they will be slaughtered by all those Fire Lancers, because as much as Bat Koala has added the Grenadiers, he's also now lower in terms of Fire Lancer numbers. Bat Koala triggering the wonder victory, though, so from this point on, 15 minutes are given to StrikeR's team to neutralize this, or to take down that wonder, and I can tell that's gonna be more difficult than neutralizing a sacred site, because it is right in the middle of Bat Koala's base, so you basically have to defeat White Wolf Palace to be able to take that down. Obviously, you can try to run in with Fire Lancers, so I would expect White Wolf Palace to go for a lot of stone walls out here. On the right side, more range is being built by Vivi, but I don't think that those wonders will even matter, because look at the left side. Lix is turning on the afterburners, and he's just pushing straight into the base of Zerton at this point. Infantry from Eerie should be able to trade this off. Lix, somewhat surprisingly, going for a couple of trebuchets as well. Looks like the mangonels are getting cleaned up. But now Lix is the one that could potentially take that sacred site. And the most important thing is that now StrikeR's team can no longer trade. So if you look at the gold income per minute, that should start decreasing for StrikeR's team. Eerie is still with 1900 though, but obviously part of that is the Regnitz Cathedral. And in this low gold situation, having the no gold cost Horse Archers is just so important. Fire Lancers once again hitting the field for Bat Koala. He has given up on the Grenadier play. On the right side, Zerton is trying to blast his way through these walls. This is only a single layer wall that has been neglected by White Wolf Palace for a long time, and this could give you a window for a beautiful raid on that side. Down south, we will have StrikeR building multiple keeps. He knows exactly that they're bleeding right now because of this hole, so he needs to fortify this. He's coming in with 3 castles out there. We're slowly running down on choppable wood across the map, as StrikeR is indeed down to 0 gold per minute. Now, if you're down to 0 gold per minute with the French, I think the best thing that you can do is have your Holy Roman Empire players sling you gold. Because keep in mind that the HRE could just go heavy on the Spearman department or go for men-at-arms. Neither of those are super gold heavy, so you could go for that and sling your gold to your teammate. The Landsknechte do come in and they will deny that castle. StrikeR really wanted to get that castle up, sort of just force build it, but that wasn't really an option. And now them losing the corner and in general just not having a lot of trade is going to start hurting. On the right side, Fire Lancers are coming in to deal with the Bombards, and some of those are quite exposed. As you see, second layer of walls coming in for Bat Koala. Bombards will be pulled back by Zerton, so Bat Koala won't be able to take them down. Down south, once again, Lix is the one with the advantage. Now, Sacred Site being captured once again by ZertoN. That's going to give him a nice gold trickle as well. Obviously, they will no longer be able to trigger the Sacred Site victory because the one down south is no longer under their control. Mostly horsemen hitting the field now for StrikeR. Now, the horsemen here are also somewhat powerful for the French, but obviously you want to play with Royal Knights, but you need a ton of gold income for that, and you currently just don't have it. Horse archers now with fairly sizable numbers, and I do see a couple of grenadiers once again for Bad Koala, a couple of towers as well on those stone walls to take down some of those fire lancers, and they do get quite a lot of kills over here. These towers still having the old spring odds do have quite a lot of firepower, and the countdown for Wonder is still going on, 11 minutes. I don't think it's possible for StrikeR's team to break through this one. There is just very little chance to get to that Wonder in 11 minutes of time. Fire Lancers exchanging shots on the right side as we have one more charge coming in. VV wisely using that staggered formation to make sure that the Fire Lancers won't deal that much damage on his units. Here come the Knight push though, and since Bad Koala already depleted his charge, most of his Fire Lancers will get massacred by the Royal Knights, but even the Horsemen on the right side. Once again, the Horse Archers are trying to break through and get into that Sacred Site. Not exactly sure why they're prioritizing it that much, especially when the Knights are coming in from the other side and Vivi is under-microing his army here a tiny bit, losing considerable Horse Archer numbers in this fight. Grenadiers also join the fun right now. As long as they do have a meat shield in front, they're a very powerful unit, but obviously your meat shield can only be your Horse Archers right now, and I feel like Vivi is getting trapped here. Vivi is actually getting trapped. This is the worst possible scenario for the Fat Dragon. He is running into this little choke point, surrounded by walls, and as things stand, many of his Horse Archers will meet their demise in this specific fight. Horse Archers still easy to replenish because you still have a ton of food income, of course, and in terms of wood, you're still fine. At some point, wood is going to start becoming a luxury commodity, though, as on the left side, look at this. StrikeR and Eery refocus their efforts on the left side, and now we see a fairly sizable force of Knights breaking through. The Knights are heavily damaged though, and the next volley of Mangonels could easily wipe them out. Rarely do you see Knights being killed by Mangonels, but this could be one of those instances. Looks like they do get away, and it is just vital right now for StrikeR to heal them up with the French ability, because many of those Knights are so heavily damaged, and right now there is just no chance to replenish them. Nice Mangonel shots on top of those Knights over here. And once again, a great fight for Lix. Mangonel is also getting some hits on top of those Knights. And the Spearmen being able to fight the Knights constantly, supported by Mangonel fire, yield a massive victory here for Lix. Up north, it looks like Fire Lancers are being assembled once again. They're probably trying to blast their way through these walls and try to flank from that direction, but as things stand, we do have Lix coming in for a Sacred Site. Now do note that one way to counter a Wonder victory would be to have a Sacred Site victory going, because a Sacred Site victory is only 10 minutes and the Wonder victory is 15, so if you capture all the Sacred Sites before the 10-minute mark on a Wonder victory, you can actually cut into that lead. But that's no longer an option. It's only 8 minutes remaining on the Wonder victory. Enormous fight coming in on the right side, Bombards setting up from ZertoN, trying to bash their way through those walls. Very narrow choke point in that gate, and you gotta be careful with all those Fire Lancers nearby. But it's also a nice choke point to hold for the Horse Archers. More and more Horsemen hit the field here for StrikeR as the Fire Lancers of Bad Koala are coming in to try and snipe the cannon. They do snipe two, but the third one is still there. Wall being repaired as things stand, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some of those Horse Archers being sacrificed to take down that Bombard. That Bombard is just so vital for the recovery of StrikeR's team. The wall still standing, Fire Lancers moving in from Vivi, and that is going to take down that last Bombard. The wall is broken through, but there is just not enough juice over here anymore for StrikeR's team to push through. Down south, Lix is also coming through with a fairly sizable force of infantry. His siege was caught off guard a little bit, so there is going to be some siege weapons going down to the cavalry, but that Wonder countdown is still ticking. 7 minutes to go. The resource efficiency of those Horse Archers are paying off so well right now, because as things stand, Those don't cost gold, and they retain their value so well. If you look at the KD, VV is sitting at a 2.0 KD pretty much. 1,300 kills, 700 losses for the Fat Dragon. And White Wolf Palace, being a very, very experienced team, they know exactly how to play these late post-Imperial scenarios. Down south, once again, an attempt to push through by StrikeR+ZertoN+Eery. But I kind of feel like at this point, their biggest problem is that this force isn't big enough to push Licks back. It might be able to repel this attack, but at some point, you're gonna have to start walking towards that Wonder, and I don't see any signs of that. Fire Lancers now moving in from bad quality to take down a keep. This keep was built here to try and establish a forward position for a striker, but he could lose both of these keeps, and that once again pushes them back. But on the right side, Zerton breaks through. Zerton actually broke through these walls over here, and now the Fire Lancers are in. So much economy exposed here, and if Vivi loses all those lumberjacks, replenishing those horse archers will suddenly become a lot more difficult. Now do keep in mind that Vivi has a huge resource bank, so when he starts losing villagers, the first thing that's going to happen is that the villagers will be replenished with army, and that might be fine for Vivi. Vivi is gonna be happy having 150 army on the field, because they only need to defend for 5 minutes. Horse archers being pulled all the way back to try and hold off those Fire Lancers. And as things stand, it looks like ZertoN's team isn't getting any closer to that Wonder whatsoever. There is some trade going for ZertoN's team now, but obviously them not having that trade for a long time set them back quite a bit. Now White Wolf Palace is playing from an advantageous position. Horse archers, looks like they will be able to repel this attack. A couple of towers were also creeped up. And it looks like the Fire Lancers were mostly focusing down the trade, which is going to be nice in the long run, but the resource bank of White Wolf Palace is so big that it's next to impossible to finish this game just by killing the trade at this point. You gotta take that Wonder down, and that just doesn't seem likely at this point. Mangonel is now coming out, pretty sizable force of infantry for Eerie, but 4 minutes 38 seconds remaining only, and no noticeable progress was made by ZertoN's team at this point. This is, by the way, match point for ZertoN's team, so if White Wolf Palace wins here, we're going to a game-free decider. One of the longest sets of the day, I do believe. Absolutely stunning game so far. Looking very, very good for White Wolf Palace at this point. Because, as I said, the moment Vivi starts losing economy, he has so much resources in the bank that he's going to start replacing them with army. And in a game that is theoretically supposed to end in 4 minutes, it's perfectly fine to replace your eco with this much army. Having like 150 army on the field makes it extremely difficult for ZertoN's team to push through here. Cavalry charge coming in now for Licks. He's mixing in some knights alongside his spearmen, so he's noticing that his opponent is running low on Royal Knights, so it makes some sense to get some knights in as well to deal with the horsemen. The knights also perform a lot better against the Landsknechte than his own infantry does. Still, of course, there is a lot of spearmen out there, but Licks is now winning in terms of like a 1v1 between the two Holy Roman Empire players, so he can afford to mix in some knights for some unit compositional variety. And on the right side, big Fire Lancer mass for ZertoN, but that Horse Archer mass for Vivi is just way bigger. 129 army. Fire Lancers do get a successful charge in here though, so you gotta be very careful if you are the Fat Dragon. Boiling Oil though, working with that tower, and that's also something that's very underrated. The Boiling Oil burning down all those Fire Lancers, and the forces of ZertoN are just getting annihilated. I feel like at this point, ZertoN's team should acknowledge the fact that there is no way for them to break through. The Wonder victory will come in for White Wolf Palace because they made basically no noticeable progress in the last 13 minutes, and we're down to a 2 minutes mark. They are having a harder and harder time accessing resources as those horse archers just decimate the villagers. Just look at this image. What you're seeing here is 98 fully upgraded Bruce horse archers, supported by some Mangonel fire and some Fire Lancers as well. At this point, I feel like even if this wasn't a Wonder victory, White Wolf Palace would be in a commanding position, because they are currently in control of this game in terms of unit composition, in terms of affordability, because those horse archers are still much easier to afford than whatever ZertoN's team is able to make. And of course, they are pretty close to pushing this trade. So even if they didn't have the Wonder going, they will be in a commanding position. The score is quite misleading at this point, I do believe, because I think Vivi has been doing a ton of work. 2 minutes remaining until the Wonder countdown, and as discussed before, Eery's team made no noticeable progress getting to that Wonder. Now Mangonels setting up to take down this keep. Obviously, the Mangonels have minimal firepower against those castles. The real firepower comes from the Fire Lancers. And as you see, at this point, Bad Koala could think about running into the eco of the opponent with the Fire Lancers. I would love to see those Fire Lancers jumping on these stables. You could slow down the production of ZertoN so much. And at this point, it's 1 minute away from victory. Even with a perfect production, I don't think that ZertoN's team has a chance anymore. It's 1 minute, and they are just so far away from sniping that landmark or anything like that. Another desperate charge here from ZertoN, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this one being the GG fight, because as you see, the forces of ZertoN are just getting absolutely annihilated. And with that, White Wolf Palace keeps their hopes alive. A very powerful team they're up against, StrikeR, ZertoN, and Eery. And White Wolf Palace stands tall. Eery's team calls the GG, and with that, we have an even set over here. White Wolf Palace in an hour-long, super grindy game. A game that they almost lost on Sacred Site terms. It was less than 2 minutes of countdown. White Wolf Palace turns things around. Just look at that villager graph for that game. The army numbers. Look at all these swings back and forth. Eery with gigantic army numbers, then just disappearing from the battlefield. Ultimately, I feel like the source of victory can be found in two places. First of all, that Wonder working out. Second, the Horse Archers being the most resource efficient unit out here by far. If you look at the resources gathered, 100 and only 100,000 food for Vivi. That's the second lowest in the game. Yet his army was just so good at retaining value. Vivi, look at that KD, 1600 kills to 800 losses. No other player had less than 1100 losses in this game, and that obviously contributed a ton. Vivi barely lost resources compared to his opponents, and all of the resources he lost was food and wood, as compared to StrikeR, who has a 941 kills to 1100 deaths. KD probably was heavily influenced by the Horseman at the end of the game, but if you think about the fact that many of these losses were very expensive French Royal Knights, especially in the gold cost, that's a concern for StrikeR. And of course, the gold income was also quite important. 86,000 for Licks, 107,000 for Eery. Bad Koala only with 54. Not a ton of gold income for our Chinese player over here. ZertoN had 70,000, so ZertoN had 16,000 more gold to work with than his Chinese counterpart on WWP. And last but not least, Vivi, only 36,000. That's probably the most noticeable difference between the two teams, because, as I said, Vivi just didn't need gold at all. Boy, oh boy, was this a game. I was hoping for a good game between these two teams, and so far, they 100% delivered. Yo, Licks, Vivi, and Bad Koala are evening this out, and this was done without the team captain playing, because the team captain of White Wolf Palace is Mr.Yo. He's supposed to be the best player of the team, and with this game, they have evened things out. Absolutely stunning. Wonderful performance by both teams. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 3 in this best of 3 in between StrikeR, Eery, and ZertoN, the Clash of Clanners team, versus White Wolf Palace, Bad Koala, Yo, and Vivi the Fat Dragon. It is only the second round of the qualifiers from the $20,000 AoE4 Pro League free v3 tournament, and in which we will have in the pocket position Vivi playing as the French. To the flank is going to be Mr.Yo playing as the English, and the other flank is going to be Mongols for Bad Koala in purple. Other side, we will have an English flank as well for StrikeR. The other flank will be a Mongols from Eery in yellow. And last but not least, it is going to be ZertoN playing as the Rus in the middle. So, The only difference between the two teams is that you have Vivi versus Zerton in the pockets, and one of them has French, that is Vivi, and you also have the Rus for Zerton. Aside from that, the game is very, very similar to what we have seen in the first game on Arabia. You do have the two English flanks on the same side, so are the two Mongol flanks on the same side. And the map is high view, as you see a lot of stealth forests all around the map, and a ton of bounty to be gathered for the Rus players. So that's the first thing that we'll have to look at, how effective Zerton can be gathering the bounty. In general, the Rus in team games is a spectacular civilization. You can easily get to that tier 3 bounty with all the hunt that's accessible, but especially on this map where there's a lot of neutral wolves, it's going to be quite easy for Zerton to get there. So in game number 1, which was a similar open map, Arabia, Zerton went for fast castle horse archers from the pocket, and on the right side we had Eery going for a spearman play, I do believe, with some aggression. Now it's going to be scouts from Eery. He's coming in with the double scouts already right next to that Ovu. And on the other side, it looks like Bad Koala isn't doing anything similar. He's just going for an early pasture. We have seen this more and more from Mongols, going for the early pasture, because this way you can get some extra sheep for yourself. And given the fact that you don't have a ton of sheep near the TC of Bad Koala, this is something you can justify at this point. Meanwhile, on the other side, we do have StrikeR going for a standard English build order right now. It is 8 on food, 3 on gold. He's going for a fast feudal longbow play. Will be mirrored by Mr.Yo. So, one of the things that the White Wolf Palace team loves to do, and this is something that we haven't talked about yet, is age up to Castle Age with the Royal Institute. So instead of going for a guild hall, they go for a Royal Institute landmark, which gives a chance for Vivi to get the Royal Bloodlines upgrade in Castle Age, making his knights very powerful. Now it looks like there is going to be something surprising over here from the Fat Dragon, because, make no mistake, that is a stone mine. So there is a likely chance that we're going to see 2 town centers from Vivi, which is a little risky, but given the fact that their opponents played quite passive in game number 1, 2 town centers might work out fine, and it looks like Bad Koala will be able to force away Eery's gold miners. Now, Eery went for a couple of scouts, but those haven't really done anything just yet. And at this point, I feel like the fact that they are set back in terms of gold gathering is going to slow down Eery's feudal age quite considerably. On the other side, if you look at Bad Koala, he's mining gold, and his gold miners will be exposed to those scouts if they find them. But so far, it doesn't seem likely. The horse archer, or well, the Mangadai. No, it's not a Mangadai, it's not a horse archer, it's a Khan. So the Khan is going to find the stable here, and that will confirm to Bad Koala that he should be expecting scouts. And that's pretty important, because he's got some exposed gold miners over here that could easily get killed by those scouts. Luckily for Bad Koala, Eery doesn't know that that gold mine is all the way back there. Because if you look at the other gold mines of Eery, or for Bad Koala, some of them are quite exposed. I think these are the gold mines that he's supposed to work with. He's kind of far away from them because he's Mongols and he placed his town center here. But this actually is the closest gold mine for Bad Koala right now. StrikeR is the first to reach feudal age, will shortly be followed by Mr.Yo. Indeed, there is the council hall as well for Yo. So we're going to see longbow mirrors on each side. But there's a couple of things that Yo's team can do here. The first thing to consider is that Zerton is likely playing Fast Castle, which means that it's going to be 2 versus 3 in terms of armies for the beginning of the game. Feudal Age on the way for Bad Koala with Deer Stones. His gold mine still being safe, and he's going for an outpost just to make sure that there is no way for his gold to be raided. Meanwhile, a second stable coming in for Eery, so Eery is going to play very heavy on the melee cavalry department, going for horsemen. This will be scouted by Bad Koala, and he's even going to delay that stable as much as possible with the Khan. On the left side, longbows being assembled by both players. Vivi has been mining some stone, and here come the scouts from Eery. That's going to be annoying to deal with for the Fat Dragon. He needs to make a knight to deal with that. Town Center is also going to help scare away those scouts, but the most important thing I do believe is that Eery has seen the stone mine. So Eery knows exactly that Yo wants to go for some sort of double Town Center play over here. And it looks like with all those scouts nearby, the stone miners will have to abandon that position. 234 stone in the bank for Vivi. he needs to turtle this out until he gets to 300. Because once he has to 300, he doesn't really need to be worried about this one. Looks like Yo is going to pull over some longbows to help him. And given the fact that his opponent's longbows are still inside his base, it is going to be no problem for Yo to dispatch a couple to help his teammate. Vivi is going to be able to play on 2 town centers. Now, on the right side, Feudal Age is in for Eerie, and we do see Horsemen coming out in batches of 2. Also, the Horseman upgrade from early Horseman is coming in. Whereas on the other side, Bat Koala is going for a Barracks. He's been playing quite passively so far. Haven't really seen much from him. Longbows playing very passive for StrikeR as he's coming in with a Blacksmith. Looking at Zerton, he's at 410 bounty right now, which is not spectacular given the fact that there is so many untouched huntables here still. He could have gotten to 500, but he's probably prioritizing ferrying in Deer for the time being. The Khan is getting some nice hits on those horsemen, but ultimately, the horsemen are grinding down the HP of that Khan, so it's very possible that Bat Koala could lose his Khan, which is quite annoying. Is Bat Koala or is Fat Dragon Vivi or the same? Yes, they are the same. He used both usernames, and this Chinese name, I'm not even sure if it translates into either of those, but he's been using multiple names. He's known for using both. Slage already on the way for Zerton, so obviously was prioritizing ferrying in Deer. Once we get deeper into the game, he will probably finish off those patches of huntables still. Scouts and Horsemen now trying to be aggressive over here for Eerie. We have some Spearmen coming in. I still haven't figured out what Bat Koala has on his mind, and the only thing I can think about right now is some sort of semi-fast castle play. Because as things stand, he's been playing very, very passively. He's banging up some resources, so I think he's trying to go fast castle knights here. Because he hasn't really been spending that stone on double training. He's banking up a lot of food and gold, so all signs point towards a semi-fast castle approach from our Mongol player over here. Looking at StrikeR, longbows are slowly being amassed on the south, and for Mr.Yo, it looks like he's just going to wall himself off on the left. There is an opening here at the back, I think, that he might need to address. Horseman once again coming in to try and harass the stone mine of Vivi. Vivi even deletes the mining camp to prevent Eerie, the Mongol player, from burning it down, because every single building that Eerie burns down obviously gives him resources. So you see 50 gold and 50 food falling into the hands of Eerie for those buildings burnt down. Down south, we do have Zerton collecting the huntables, but nothing other than that. Some spearmen hiding in the stealth forests, and I wonder if Bat Koala is trying to get a surprise attack in on the opponent. This could be interesting. Oh, here it goes. Eerie is moving deeper into the stealth forest, but he has vision on that army, because he's got scouts, he's got the Khan working for him, so he sees the spearman. He knows exactly that he can't run to the right side, because at this point, there is enough spearmen to massacre his army. Meanwhile, longbows slowly crawling forward to Mr.Yo, not a ton, but just a handful of them to try and get some raids going, get a tiny bit of advantage over StrikeR. StrikeR's army has been sort of inactive. He's slowly crawling up with some towers, giving him vision, and the network of castles bonus expanded, as Yo does lose his scout to the longbows, but this will allow him to spot the opponent's army. Now he is swinging to the side of StrikeR over here. He knows about the gold mine, he knows about the lumberjacks as well, so he should be able to get some nice damage done. Let's see if StrikeR is going to spot that army. Yo moves in on the gold miners first, and that is going to be one villager down. A second villager is going to make a run for it. I don't think that Yo can take down all three, because this last one should be able to jump into the town center, but instead chooses to run away, and with that, Yo is going to pick it off. Nice little pickup there for Mr.Yo, but StrikeR is coming in for a strong counterattack, and that could be a lot more devastating than this small raid was. Horse archers being amassed though by Zerton already, and this is the danger that you're facing over here. So far, you haven't done a single bit of damage to the Rus player, so we have a completely untouched Zerton sitting at around 400 bounty, going for horsemen, and in the end, the warrior monks are going to be the ones that really start swinging this in their favor, because they will start picking up relics, and those relics will start to swing the economy in the favor of the Rus player. Tower coming up all the way to the front for StrikeR, and that's going to give him a very nice forward position to push from. Not sure if Yo has spotted this just yet. Yo sees the longbows moving in, he's gonna have a network of castles working for him, so this should be a defense that he can pull off. Defense upgrade right now coming in for him. He has no armor on those longbows. His opponent has no armor either, so Yo having the defense upgrade finish in a couple of seconds could be something that wins him this battle, and he might even be able to intercept those forward villagers before the tower is completed. Indeed, for now, StrikeR is going to bail out on that tower. Still, the biggest question right now is what is Bad Koala gonna do? Looks like he's going for just Lancers for the time being. Would have loved to see Mangadai, to be honest, because Mangadai would have been a very, very nice addition here for the Mongols. And then you have two English players, you have a French player going for Knights. So what you would do is have Knights, Mangadai, and Longbows as a combined force. That could have been interesting. Separate out in for both Eery, the Bad Koala, so both Mongol players now up to Castle Age, as we do have a defensive tower coming in for Yo to expand his bonus a tiny bit more. Make sure that he's always influenced by that bonus. Another tower comes in on the right side of his base. Behind this one, Vivi has been booming on 2 town centers, by the way. Let's not underestimate the power of that. And he's going for a keep. Interesting strategy from Vivi. So far, White Wolf Palace has been very, very passive with their gameplay. Barely any army made by Bad Koala. Barely any army made by Vivi. And they were playing super defensive, realizing that their opponents were also playing quite defensive. And what this means is that now Vivi is on 2 town centers with a fairly good economy. We're talking about 63 villagers, which is quite decent at this stage of the game. As a comparison, you have 40 for Bad Koala, 31 for StrikeR. So, way better villager count right now for Vivi. And that's going to allow him to go for Knights production. He already made a castle. And this castle will reduce the cost of Knights on this building. So, the Knights are also cheap, and now, it looks like Vivi aged up with the Guild Host, so no Royal Institute for him for the extra HP. Quite a sizable force of horsemen, though, coming in here from Eery. Bad Koala has a couple of Knights to deal with this, but this is starting to be a very scary force from StrikeR, ZertoN, and Eery. Horsemen, horse archers, and longbows, and you can only fit 20 villagers into that town center, and with such a big force, you can just run into the range of the town center and pick off all those forces. This is where Bad Koala is going to realize that he's facing a massive army over here. Look at that trickle of longbows across the map. If Vivi just had a couple of Knights there to intercept them, that could be massive. Meanwhile, Knights on the right side will trade off against each other, so nothing major happening over there between Bad Koala and Eery. Vivi needs to start contributing with a lot of Knights soon, because otherwise they'll be in trouble. However, it looks like those Knights will be hidden in the stealth forests, so you can jump on those unsuspecting horse archers any moment. For now, the horse archers didn't do that much damage. A couple of Lancers in here for Bad Koala, but now you see there is longbows coming from the right, horse archers from the left. Horse archers, though, taking that fight close to the TC, and I feel like the saving grace for Bad Koala is that their opponents don't know about this gold mining operation up until now. Now that this gold mining operation is exposed, Bad Koala is in serious trouble. Because his initial eco was ready, but his gold mine was untouched, and now he's making a run for it. Spearmen trying to get the best hits on those horsemen. They actually get a couple of hits. Vivi is gonna have a decent force of Knights here, and I feel like this could be a nice trap. Because at this point, Eery is very resilient when it comes to pursuing that army, and now he's going to have his horsemen intercepted by the longbows of Mr.Yo. Longbows will be able to pick apart all those forces. The Khan has been picked off, now Knights from Vivi are coming in, and I feel like ZertoN, StrikeR, and Eery may have just run into a trap over there. Especially given how difficult it is to reinforce the battle here for StrikeR, they could be in trouble here, because if those reinforcements do get intercepted, then they could face a decisive defeat here. And behind this one, you have 2 town centers for the Fat Dragon. So his economy is very good. He's making cheap Knights. And I feel like Vivi's Knight spam over here might work out very nicely. The Horse Archers getting cornered a tiny bit over here. And now you're seeing a massive horde of Knights. And the Horse Archers can, of course, microwave from the Knights. But when you have this many Knights pursuing you, you just don't have the chance to turn back and shoot, because every time you turn back, you're going to face so much damage, especially when there's so many longbows supporting. Looks like the longbows will come in now to take this fight as well. But this is a fight that Bad Koala's team still has to be confident with. Longbows won't be able to do much against the Knights, and the moment they stop to fight, the longbows from Mr.Yo will be able to close in. I think you want to focus all your Knights on those longbows and just clean up that force, because it's a little more difficult to pursue all of those horse archers now. Lancers coming in here from Eery, though, and that is going to be a quite big decision maker. Because at this point, suddenly the forces of White Wolf Palace are inferior here. Longbows will have to fight the Knights, which is not something that they love to do. Some Knights coming in from VV to relieve this one. He has the cheaper Knights as opposed to the double training of the Mongols. But of course, the double training of the Mongols is bottlenecked by the amount of stone you have, whereas the cheaper Knights for the French is now something that is forever there for VV. Longbows slowly getting forced back, and this is exactly what Bad Koala needs to do, or VV. Intercept those reinforcements. Look at those tiny little red dots walking through the map. StrikeR is just trickling in reinforcements, all of which could be intercepted. Now, one thing that we haven't discussed yet is the relic situation, and that's getting worse and worse for White Wolf Palace, though. 5 relics for ZertoN, plus he also has a sacred site, so his gold income is now looking really good. 700 per minute, pretty much, without touching any gold mine. And that's going to translate into Imperial Age at some point, and Elite Horse Archers. And with Elite Horse Archers, it's gonna be rather easy to clean up all of those Castle Age units. So I feel like White Wolf Palace is on a bit of a timer right now. The only player still in Feudal Age, though, is StrikeR. So from this point on, Yo is in Castle. Yo aged up with the... Did he go with the White Tower? No, he went with the King's Palace. So Yo is gonna be able to get a villager advantage over the other English player. So in general, White Wolf Palace will have the villa advantage. Obviously, that will be compensated for by the relics for ZertoN. Bit of a raid coming in here by Eery, getting quite a lot of kills on those gold miners, but now VV can just pursue this. He could force a fight here just by pursuing all those Lancers. As things stand, we do have 56 villagers for Eery, 53 for ZertoN, Yo's at 59, 91 for the Fat Dragon, 47 for Bad Koala, StrikeR's at 45. So by far the best villager count comes for VV, and obviously with that big of a villager advantage, his eco is able to compensate for that relic deficit. Sacred side on the left side also being captured by ZertoN. He's carrying a relic, so as things stand, it's already 6 relics now for him. That is a ton of gold income, and that's the biggest problem right now for Mr.Yo's team. This being said, currently I think they have the military advantage, so what they need to do is finish off one player, for example StrikeR, and then player 2 versus 3. StrikeR looks like he is being slung now by Eery. Makes some sense, because StrikeR is the last player in Feudal Age. Sacred sites, all captured by ZertoN. Now, White Wolf Palace has the window to neutralize those, but theoretically speaking, at 28 minutes, the Sacred Site victory will be achieved by StrikeR's team. So you have to be considerate of that. Still, it's very likely that White Wolf Palace will be able to counterattack this, because that's a fairly sizable force of longbows. These are veteran longbows as opposed to the Feudal Age longbows of StrikeR. So numbers advantage on the side of White Wolf Palace, quality advantage is on the side. And the most important thing is that when you have the bigger ball of longbows, or the stronger ball of longbows, you can focus down the opponent's horse archers very nicely. That's the other big thing here, that the meat shield is much bigger for White Wolf Palace. Having all those knights out there is just so decisive, and the knights are just not hesitating, they're running in as we speak. StrikeR is up to Castle Age. This is the moment where White Wolf Palace wants to take this fight before the upgrades come in on those longbows. The knights are charging in. All of those longbows getting clumped up over there. Bit of a difficult micro situation for StrikeR. Horse archers now trickling in to support this combat, so VV needs to be careful not to overextend against all those horse archers. Behind this one, the rams are knocking down the buildings of StrikeR. Knights looks like they will decide to make this engagement, now retreating from all those horse archers, but the longbows are coming in, and from this point on, you will use those veteran longbows to focus down all the horse archers. Veteran longbows now in for StrikeR, but he lost significant numbers. Knights still in here to soak up a ton of arrow fire. And behind this one, rams are knocking down the buildings. Knight numbers slowly getting lower and lower though, and reinforcements are nowhere on the horizon. Knights coming in from Eery as well. Where did all the forces go from Bad Koala? The answer is, he's pursuing a couple of knights behind his base, and I feel like White Wolf Palace desperately needs Bad Koala's forces here, because as things stand, they're playing a 3 versus 2. And now with those knights coming in, Mr.Yo could lose his longbow mass here quite rapidly. It is going to be knights and longbows versus just pure longbows. Easy cleanup here for Eery, StrikeR, and ZertoN. And once again, they were able to focus all three of their armies on the left side of the map, whereas for White Wolf Palace, they only had two. This could be a game-losing move for WWP, because now you have crossbows coming in for Yo, which will deal with the Lancers, but they will have no chance against all those Horse Archers, and the longer the game goes, the better Zerton is going to be able to capitalize on the 6 relics he has. On the right side, we still have a sizable force of Lancers, so what you need right now, I do believe, for Bad Koala is to have a very good raid going. He needs to do a ton of damage to Eerie, because keep in mind that StrikeR still lost some villagers, and behind this one, Vivi has a great villager count, Yo has a good villager count as well, because he has been on 2 town centers for a long time. So if Eerie loses quite a lot of eco here, eco advantage will still be on the side of White Wolf Palace, and that could help turn things around, but they definitely took a quite disadvantageous fight very recently. The Khan is not popping any arrows just yet, but now the Lancers are trickling into the base of Eerie. Reinforcements are coming in though, and this could be a beautiful surround. This could be a beautiful surround. If those Horse Archers swing from the behind, they could easily 2v1 this group of Lancers, and that could be an absolute disaster for Bad Koala. White Wolf Palace can't afford to lose another army like they did before, and you see Bad Koala sees the impending disaster and he's going to disengage, because at this point he knows exactly he can't take that fight. Vivi has been silent for a long time though, and that is because he's getting up to Imperial Age and he's about to get Royal Bloodlines. He's the first player to Imp. He's actually beating the opponent's Rus player as Bad Koala's forces are getting repelled quite rapidly. Significant casualties also coming in for him. Many of those Lancers already heavily damaged. The question is, does Vivi have enough time to get all the upgrades in and help out his teammate? Because at this point, Yo lost the majority of his army. Now Bad Koala is forced to fight 2 versus 1. The team coordination just seems to be so much better for StrikeR's team. Vivi, however, Imperial Age Knights, those will be able to deal with the Horse Archers quite nicely. We're looking at just a devastating amount of Horse Archers over here. Quick tally on that. 89 Horse Archers for Zerton. That is just a massive, massive count. Bad Koala needs a couple of Mangonels to fight this one right now. Elite Royal Knights are in for the Fat Dragon though. So this force over here that's getting closer and closer to the base of StrikeR could be devastating, because right now it is just Veteran Spearman. I feel like you still want to go for the eco of Zerton though, because even though he has the relics, if you kill his food eco, that could be enough. Huge force though. I feel like at this point it's a who dies first contest. Knights coming in now onto the base of StrikeR. StrikeR is going to lose considerable numbers, but I feel like this force here is a little more dangerous than the one from the Fat Dragon. If Vivi can divert like 20 Royal Knights over here with the Elite upgrade, that could help immensely. Of course, Yo would also need to have some sort of support to this one, or he needs to start killing StrikeR, because at this point, the biggest problem they're facing is that Bad Koala is dying. Knights now coming in. Most of them are getting cleaned up by the Spearman. These are Imperial Age Knights, but still, Veteran Spearmen that can brace will be able to hold them off to a certain extent. Longbows now exchanging shots over here, but that's going to be an even trade. And on the right side, this force just feels unstoppable right now. Royal Knights coming in though for Vivi. He's got 364 HP on them, 8 ranged armor, so the Castle Age Horse Archers won't do that much against them. And it looks like we're in for a big engagement right now. The Horse Archers will take the fight. Defense arrow being popped as well, but those Imperial Age Knights might be the difference maker. The scouts on the front will help a lot to slow down this advance from White Wolf Palace, but this is a now or never fight for WWP. Horse Archers still untouched behind, as now you see some Green Knights trickling to the back, also some Lancers moving in. If White Wolf Palace loses this fight, I do think that they lose the game, and they're just still unable to hit all those Horse Archers. Town Center, only 1 villager garrison to take some shots on those Horse Archers. Slowly but sure, the Horse Archer numbers are being ground down though. That is going to be the power of all of those elite Royal Knights. Meanwhile, down south, Longbows slowly crawling up. This is match point, ladies and gentlemen. And we have Zerton now going up to Imperial Age with the Spaskaya Tower. Look at all those villagers 40 villagers from bad quality that just had a mass migration to the left side. Coming back to his eco, once we have Imperial Age for Zerton, he's gonna have the elite horse archers, so the fight would swing back in their favor once again, but he's down to 47, so his numbers aren't spectacular and he's not up to Imperial Age yet. I feel like the window is there. The window is there for White Wolf Palace to do damage, because right now, they have the better army. These elite Royal Knights can potentially steamroll the base of Eerie, and Mr.Yo, with all those rams, longbows, and some mangonel support, he can start pushing strikers. So, at this point for White Wolf Palace, the key thing is to make sure that while Zerton is aging up, they need to kill his teammates, so that it's going to turn into a 3 versus 1 scenario, pretty much. Zerton still has a ton of relic gold income, of course, as we have another batch of horse archers assembled over here. StrikeR is sort of playing Scourger tactics at this point, sort of slowly retreating and trying to buy himself some time. Imperial Age in for Zerton, but he's going to take this fight before Imp. That is not necessarily ideal by any means. Mangonel setting up, getting some nice shots on top of those horse archers. And without upgrades, you just can't afford to take this fight. Longbows moving in from the other side, though, trying to snipe the Mangonels. One of them does get sniped, but the entire base of StrikeR is Little Blaze. Behind this one, this is the bigger deal. Those French Royal Knights are coming in, knocking out Eerie pretty much from this game. He's forced to run for his life, and his Lancers will just be insufficient to hold this off. Both flanks are collapsing, and even with 5 relics for the Rus, this might be a defeat for Eerie's team. They took game number 1 victory, but White Wolf Palace is standing strong. And at this point, this is looking very, very grim from them. That Mangonel is doing so much work as they're trying to take that down from 2 directions, the longbows and the horse archers. Knights are now just feasting on those villagers. Horse archers will be dispatched to deal with them. But if you look at Eerie's villager count, that is not looking spectacular. It's down to 60. Many knights have fallen, so there is still maybe a glimpse of hope for StrikeR's team. But StrikeR is set back quite heavily. And Eerie also took quite a bit of a damage over here. We haven't heard of Bad Koala for a long time. He hadn't really gotten a lot of army on the field though, and with that Mangonel not in a firing position, the horse archers can move in. And the White Wolf Palace suddenly find himself outnumbered in this fight. Longbow numbers are quite even, but the horse archers now with the elite upgrade, they are able to get a pretty decent engagement going here. Still, Imperial Age Knights will be able to soak up some arrow fire. And the question is, how long can StrikeR replenish his forces? Because at this point, if he starts falling behind in numbers, it's going to be very difficult to deal with all of this. Forward castle coming in from Mr.Yo. This would expand his network of castles bonus all the way out here. And the biggest thing of all, Mr.Yo is up to Imperial Age. And that could be a deciding factor. Because at this point, if Yo gets to Imperial Age, he's going to have elite longbowmen. He's going to have the volley ability. So suddenly his longbows will be way better than StrikeR's ones. And those will help a lot against those Imperial Age horse archers as well. Some crossbows being mixed in here. They don't do that much against the horse archers. Full longbows would probably be a better choice here at this point for Yo, but these are probably leftovers. Monk coming in here for Zerton, maybe trying to get a conversion, but that's going to fail. Castle is up, network of citadels bonus not in for Yo, only network of castles, but still, this is such a good forward position to utilize. And one of the most underappreciated bonuses of the English, you can make units on your castle. So now Yo can reinforce this battlefield with mangonels anytime he wishes to. On the right side, Lancer numbers evening out. Eerie and Bad Koala still have pretty much identical Lancer numbers. But look at that force from the Fat Dragon. I feel like this game was just a spectacular show of force from Vivi. 51 Royal Knights. That is just an insane number. And now we're seeing knights trickling into economies left and right. Just a handful of knights being sent in to get some raids going. You still want to be careful with this because you don't want to lose most of your knight numbers. It might be a little wiser to keep all of those knights together, because if you just spread them out, the horse archers will pick them apart and it's very expensive to replenish them. But now, Eerie's knight numbers aren't looking spectacular and you have a decent raiding force coming into the right side. A lot of towers. Look at what Eerie is doing. That is like 9 towers with spring golden placements out there to protect the villagers. The firepower by itself should be enough to clean up the knights, but the bigger thing is getting to those towers of the villagers. And you see, there's a bit of a traffic jam over here, and with that, so many villagers go down before reaching the towers. Knights will come in to react, but once again, that's so many dead villagers out there. And in a game where you are up against 2 Imperial Age players with only 1, that is looking quite problematic. All the knights from Eery went to the left side, but even if he comes in to help, those elite Royal Knights are just so much better. But Trebuchet is out there for StrikeR, trying to take that keep down. Rams being assembled by Mr.Yo. Yo with the elite longbow upgrade now in. Treb slowly shelling this castle. In the middle, we do have a sacred site being neutralized and soon taken by Mr.Yo, so fortifying that with a keep to prevent any kind of sacred site victory. And as you see, you already have forward siege workshops coming in as well. Stone walls. Actually, no, these are palisades. These are palisades by Zerton because he is Rus. Fortified palisades coming in the middle, but now you see an even trade between knights. But this is something that obviously favors the French player a lot. 364 HP on those Lancers as opposed to 230, so those Knights are way better for a French player. Obviously, he's going to take a one-on-one fight against those Lancers. Knights now trickling into the eco of Zerton as well. They're still trying to knock Zerton out of this game as fast as possible. But you gotta be careful because losing all those Royal Knights would be very, very costly at this stage. Still, by sending all the Knights into the eco of Zerton, they basically force Zerton to stay at home so he can't really use the mobility of his Horse Archers. And that allows Mr.Yo to finish off StrikeR. That's probably the game plan. They force Zerton and Eery to pursue those those Imperial Age Knights. And then you can have Mr.Yo slowly grind down the opponent. There's already a bombard out, and that's shelling this council hall and the town center. If those two go down, the only landmark that remains is the King's Palace, and that's also within reach. Reboldequin is also out, something that could be great against massed units like Longbowmen, so don't underestimate that either. But the big thing is that bombard. It's slowly grinding down those buildings, and StrikeR is getting close to elimination at this point. Knights once again coming in. Eery is going to suffer from quite a bit of an eco damage over here as they are still trying to get their woes up. A new batch of Lancers is assembled by Bad Koala, and he could hit that Goldman on the right side. StrikeR's team is so much on the back foot, I don't necessarily think there's a way back, especially with Bad Koala and Imperial. 3 Imperial Age players versus only 1. There is a Rus player with 6 relics right now in Imperial Age with what seems to be 102 elite Horse Archers. But the other 2 flanks are just so much behind. And at this point, the combined efforts, the combined economy of White Wolf Palace is stronger than that one individual player's strength. That's exactly what we're seeing. The town center is on fire. Still, they're far away from destroying all 3 of those landmarks. Zerton coming in with a bombard himself to try and knock down the keep. Looks like they might be able to keep this base intact for the time being, because that bombard might be able to get rid of that castle. Looks like the fight is actually pretty decent with all those crossbowmen in the party. For Mr.Yo, they don't perform that well against the Horse Archers. Now Knights are charging in, trying to get that cannon killed. StrikeR repairing his teammate's bombard at this point, trying to save it. Looks like the bombard will survive until the castle goes down, and might even survive after that. All of those Knights are getting absolutely slaughtered at this point. On the right side, how is the situation? There is still a lot of Horse Archers. Are we seeing StrikeR's team making a stand here? If StrikeR's team is making a stand, that's all about those Horse Archers. 99 Horse Archers at this point, split into 2 groups. Now they have some walls in the middle that's going to limit the raids of Vivi. I still think that at this point, you could really think about Magdai or Bad Koala, or just Elite Lancers could work as well. Now it's Elite, and they're hiding in the forest, so Zerton won't spot them. The next raid is going to come in. Look at Bad Koala. He's waiting, waiting, waiting. And when these forces leave, he's going to jump on them. Trebuchets now setting up to start shelling those forward buildings. Horse Archers intercepting quite a lot of reinforcements here. The Horse Archer numbers are still spectacular, but now you have a big force of Lancers moving in, and that's going to be difficult for Eery to defend against. Lancers still Castle Age units over here for Eery, but StrikeR managed to reach Imperial Age as well. Horse Archers getting an absolutely terrifying surround here from the Knights. That could be massive. This could be just enormous. Some other Horse Archers are coming in to relieve the pressure, but that's so many dead bodies on the Horse Archers. Now it looks like the Elite Knights will also focus down Eery. I think they just want to triple team him, take down his landmarks, and finish the game over here. Because on the left side, I think Yo is able to 1v1 StrikeR for the time being. Although with StrikeR and Imperial, he might be able to make a stand. Horse Archers now trickling in, trying to deal with all those purple elite Lancers now. More Horse Archers coming in. The biggest problem, I believe, for StrikeR's team is Eery's population. He's at 47 villagers, 6 army. It's virtually a 3 versus 2 right now. A 3 versus 2 in which StrikeR is completely behind Mr.Yo, so it feels really more like a 3 versus 1.5 at this point. And you will be able to retreat against those Lancers for some time. But how long? That's just the gigantic force of elite Lancers from the Mongols and elite Royal Knights from the French. Some more Horse Archers coming in to relieve this one. But look at this, on the left side, another batch of Lancers come in, and it is just way too much army to deal with for StrikeR's team. Even with a fully boomed Rus player, the biggest problem that they faced is that those Horse Archers couldn't be everywhere. And with the Vanguard Palace out for StrikeR, he can get a couple of trebuchets for himself in the Vanguard army, but that's not gonna be enough. Here is at 53 population, 70 population only for StrikeR. If you look at any of the WWP players, they are at least above 100. Bad Koala's population is also looking kind of underwhelming, but at this point, it's all about those Knights for Vivi and those Longbows for Mr.Yo. Speaking of Mr.Yo, he's destroying the landmarks. There is the King's Palace, so all they need to do to completely knock StrikeR out of the game is this building, the Vanguard Palace. Answer is also charging in from Bad Koala, trying to get some raids going. At this point, they know exactly that they just need to force ZertoN to pursue all of those units. And then you see White Wolf Palace is coming in for the kill. Mr.Yo was defeated in game number 1. Now they will avenge that, because with that Vanguard Palace going down, StrikeR will be defeated, and that just basically means that it will turn into a 3 versus 1. Eery is not a factor right now, being in Castle Age, having no economy or army to work with. And ZertoN, he can't be everywhere at the same time. StrikeR, ZertoN, and Eery took the lead in game number 1. Then they were 2 minutes away from winning game number 2 with the Sacred Site victory. And then White Wolf Palace comes in. They neutralize the Sacred Sites in game number 2, win the game on a Wonder victory, and then they just come in with what was a very risky play from the French. Playing with 2 Townsenders is quite a risky setup, because if your opponents all go for aggression, like Rus could go for Horse Archers quite fast, Mongols go for some aggression, English go for some aggression, you could easily lose your teammates, and we've almost seen that happen. Bad Koala was very close to dying, but that Imperial Age came in just in time for Vivi to save him, so really, the timing is just a little bit off here for the Fat Dragon. They could have lost this game. Eery and ZertoN still trying this one, but just as much as in the case of game number 1, where Mr.Yo was dead, and it was a 2 versus 3, I don't see this one happening, because now what you're going to see is the Knights burning down the monasteries, so all that eco advantage from ZertoN is going to disappear. You're going for a town center, but this is not the starting TC that they have to go for. The starting town center is this one, and of course there is the Abbey of the Trinity. Horse Archers will be able to clean up those longbowmen. Look at all the firepower that ZertoN has, but replenishing those will be more and more difficult. And the most important thing is that while they are distracting ZertoN here, this town center will be taken down by Bad Koala, which means that Eery is going to be very close to getting knocked out of the game as well. At some point, ZertoN is going to run out of resources, and he won't have the chance to replenish his forces. He's only 18 on food right now, with 1,000 food in the bank. You see, Vivi is running out of juice as well. He doesn't have a lot more gold to spend on knights. You're seeing more and more horsemen hit the field, so that's a somewhat alarming sign, but just look at that trickle of longbows from Mr.Yo for a brief moment. A flood of longbows spammed all the way across the map, and last effort here from Eery to save his town center. That town center has 20 villagers garrisoned inside, pretty much his entire economy at this point. He's at 40 villagers, 0 economy. Town center is about to go down. At this point, there isn't really much that Eery can do. His entire economy is going to get absolutely slaughtered over here. There is the Deer Stones, and his Step Redupt is all the way out here, so he won't get defeated anytime soon. The Horse Archer numbers are still spectacular for ZertoN, but how long can he hold? That's the main question. An absolutely insane series. This was like a 3-hour-long series with some spectacular games. Both of these teams really have proven that they could have advanced deeper into the tournament, but that is not going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, White Wolf Palace, being down one game, they make a comeback. And with that, WWP, a team that doesn't really have high ratings when you look at their individual players in 1v1, a team that pretty much focuses exclusively on team games, is going to knock out Eery, StrikeR, ZertoN, and technically Give You Anxiety as well, but Give You Anxiety didn't play. These players that they just knocked out is one of the strongest teams of the tournament when it comes to player lineup, I do believe. Very, very nice show of force here. And ultimately, this was fueled by this. I think White Wolf Palace diagnosed very well that their opponents played quite passively, so they could get away with what was a very greedy boom from Vivi. Look at this. At minute 15, he was at 95 villagers, almost double than what his opponents had. And of course, Yo having a better castlage time than his opponent also meant that he get the veteran longbows upgrade a little faster. And of course, he was on 2 TCs with the King's Palace, so he was the second one to boom away. And at this point, Bad Koala was sort of the meat shield. He was the one absorbing all the damage. You see, his villager count was never spectacular, but Bad Koala absorbed all the damage, and then Vivi and Mr.Yo just finished off the game. ZertoN with a very nice KD, but ultimately, the biggest problem for them is that StrikeR and Eery were so much behind compared to their respective counterparts.